Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best Entitled People stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen sues me for child support, knowing that I'm not the father. I, 27 male, used to live in a crappy apartment building. I had a neighbor right next to me called Sarah, approximately 24 female, who had a 6-year-old son, Mark. I had lived there for 3 years and moved out about 2 months ago. My grandfather passed away and left most of his money and possessions to me and my sisters. It wasn't much after taxes, but I was able to use it as a deposit on an apartment. Sarah and her son moved in about 4 to 5 months after I did, and although she didn't talk about it, I got the feeling that her ex hadn't been the greatest. Police would come around occasionally to check if she was okay. The kid was scared stiff of loud noises and yelling, etc. I work from home, data analyst, so I was around a lot. Mark used to go to a preschool while she worked, and then after he started school, he was supposed to go to an after-school thing. Sarah works 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. as a nurse aide. Problem is that back in March of last year, his after-school thing closed, and then a couple months later, his school shifted all their learning online, while his mom only got busier because of what was going on. I kept seeing him playing outside by the road or hanging off the balcony and was a bit worried for his safety, so I started offering him hot chocolate and keeping an eye on him. About a week later, Sarah came by and offered me $20. She was very apologetic and explained that her parents disowned her and she couldn't afford a full-time nanny for him, but also couldn't afford to quit her job to keep an eye on him, which was basically her only other option. My older sister is a nurse, and I'd seen her looking shattered and with bruises on her face from her masks, so I felt really bad for them and offered to keep an eye on Mark while she worked, since I was at home anyway, and he's a cool kid. Long story short, I told Sarah in October I was moving out, and she was distraught about what she'd do with Mark. Schools and daycare still haven't reopened here yet. I offered for her to drop him off at my new place while she was working as a temporary solution during lockdown. This had been working for the past couple of months until I received a letter from a lawyer basically informing me that Sarah was filing for child support against me as I had taken a paternal figure in Mark's life. I immediately called Sarah and told her to come get Mark. We had a massive fight because basically she thinks I can afford it, so why shouldn't I pay it? After she picked him up, I blocked her number and contacted a lawyer who told me that I would probably be fine as I'm not his dad and I never offered to take care of him in any financial way. Sarah has been in touch with my sisters who think that I'm doing the right thing by not paying, but I'm being a jerk by refusing to look after Mark anymore. I feel like crap since he's probably being stuck in those crappy apartment blocks again, but I also don't want to risk a court case. Am I the jerk for refusing to look after him while she works? Tiny update. Thank you all for your lovely messages. I can't see some of them because of a Reddit error that keeps popping up, but I'm trying to read all of them. I've said this a few times in the comments, but we'll put it here too. After what has happened, I have contacted the authorities. I haven't had an update from them, but I will post here if I hear anything. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Sarah for trying to get child support from him? Please let us know. She'll trap somebody eventually, but not today. Fly, OP, fly, you fool. Karen really wants her 10 cents. Once a week, usually, I will stop by the local coffee shop and pick up a drink and a donut on the way to work. I make my own most days, but this is my treat day. The one near my work is right off of a major highway, so it's always busy, and with lockdown restrictions, most time I end up waiting outside because of the lineup. Today was no different. There was about 10 people in line, and I got in line behind Entitled Mom. She got in line just before I did, but I could hear her already start as soon as she got there. Oh my god, this place is so slow. Why do I have to wait outside? I have my headphones on, so even though I can hear her complaining, I can easily ignore her. It took a good 5 to 10 minutes until we were even in the store, and she was complaining the whole time. My kids are in the car getting cold. Why do they only have 1 person at the counter and 5 on drive-thru? I don't have time for this. I've put my 2 years in working at a coffee shop, so I understand things can get busy. And yeah, they should probably put more people on the counter. But what are they going to do? Grow a new person in the back? They only have so many people working. When we finally got in, we can see the counter girl running around as fast as she could. She definitely wasn't lollygagging or anything. But still, Entitled Mom loudly kept complaining. There was no way the worker girl didn't hear her. Another 5 minutes, and it was Entitled Mom's turn to order. She started with a, "Ugh, finally." Then she ordered a drink and a couple of sandwiches. It came to $9.90 altogether. Entitled Mom gave the girl a $10 bill and then stuck her hand out for her change. "I want my 10 cents back, please. You don't deserve it." The girl just sighed, gave her change, then made her coffee. She took it without even a thank you and went to the sandwich area to wait for her sandwich. My turn. I ordered my coffee and donut. Came to about $3, but as luck would have it, I had a free coffee today, so it was only $1. Normally, I don't carry much cash, but I will pay with just my debit and throw them a quarter or two if I have it. But today, I happen to have $5 in my wallet. As a father of two, this surprised even me. So I handed it to her, and when she tried to give me the $4 change, I, loud enough so Entitled Mom could hear, said, "No thanks, you work hard, you keep it." The girl smiled and said, "Thanks." Entitled Mom looked over at me like she had just smelt a fart or something. When I opened the bag at work, there was a second donut in the bag. Never tasted so good. Hopefully, Entitled Mom learned. She got her dime, but I got the extra donut. Speaking of donuts, what are your favorite kind of donuts to eat? Please let us know. Jelly-filled all day, bruh. Yes. Am I the jerk for calling my wife a helicopter mom? My son James just turned 16 this month, and he decided he wanted to start working a part-time job, just to have some extra spending money and to start saving up. He hasn't had much luck. I doubt many places are interested in hiring a teen with limited hours to work. James started to get annoyed with my wife after he found out she submitted a few applications for him. We had a whole talk about that and reminded her that James wants to do this job hunting on his own. Over a week ago, James applied at this local clothing store he likes to shop at since he's familiar with the place. He was told the usual line when he spoke to the hiring manager. "We'll review your application and give you a call." He was really hoping to get this one, but after a week, he figured they were not going to call. Earlier, when I got home, there was some tension. James was locked in his room, and my wife seemed upset. I spoke to him first, and he told me that my wife called the store earlier and berated the hiring manager for giving my son false hope and lying to him about giving him a call when they clearly weren't going to. James heard the call from upstairs because she was yelling, and when he confronted my wife, she said she was just angry on his behalf, that they should have called him anyways to let him know that he didn't get the job. But obviously, they are only going to call applicants they actually plan to hire. He's angry at my wife right now for interfering, and now he's going to be too embarrassed to go to that store again since they know who he is. I also confronted my wife, and she kept saying she was only looking out for him. However good her intentions were, I told her she needed to stop being a helicopter mom here, or she could ruin opportunities for him by interfering. My wife went to our room and shut the door. James wants an apology from her for embarrassing him. My wife says she did nothing wrong and is mad at me for calling her that. She said I was the one being a jerk for not caring if our son finds a job, and it's not fair for me to criticize her when she at least gives a darn. With the way she's being right now, I have to ask if maybe I went too far and was a jerk for calling her a helicopter mom. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his wife? Please let us know. My heart really goes out to that young man. There's no telling what other kind of shenanigans his mom has pulled over the years. Rude customer forced to apologize to me. So this is a story from my first job ever. For some backstory, I worked at a department store for 3 years and was working in the lawn and garden tool section of the store. It took me some time to get used to it, and learning about the specs for the merchandise was a bit of a pain, but I managed with the help from coworkers, and they are awesome. I miss them like crazy since I left, but I do contact them from time to time. Story time. I've been working there for a year and a half by the time, and a pretty big snowstorm was about to hit the next few days, so we had a lot of people in the store wanting snow throwers, shovels, etc. Outside the store, chained up, were some returned/used snow throwers at a lower price, but they make us some decent commission, more if a protection plan was added. This guy comes in, and since I wasn't with anyone at the moment, our cashier directed him to me for help. He comes up to me asking if I could help with a snow thrower outside, and I said sure. Jerk, as to what I'll refer to him by now going forward, started out decent in the beginning and was somewhat impressed that I knew better ways to take care of the snow thrower. Thank you, V, not using his full name. Those extra details helped a lot. Jerk said he needed to check something else in the store, but told me he'd come back to me when he was finished for the sale. I said sure thing and placed a sold sign on it. About 15 minutes later, he comes back and asks for me to finish the sale. I rang him up with no protection plan since I got this a lot. My friend is a mechanic. Didn't hurt my numbers much since I had sold a much more expensive model with a 3-year plan. The sale is done and I go with him to unlock it since it was chained and had a security tag on it. And he asks if I can get a wrench to loosen the bolts. We go inside and this is when he went from kind to a jerk. Jerk. So, what about its horsepower? How much does it have? Me. Snow throwers don't go by horsepower. They go by cc. Jerk. But do you know the conversion? Me. No, not really. So you don't know much else about the machine then? Just the basics and a bit more of how to maintain it? Me. Now, knowing where this is going but trying to stay polite. Sorry, but when it comes to more details like what you're asking me, I don't really know much else. This dude didn't go livid or anything like that, but was annoyed. He started insulting my knowledge, calling me an idiot, and then said the company hired me because they were sorry for me. I normally am a very patient person, not wanting to argue unless I have to, and I've never been in an actual fight, but I can hold my own if need be. Almost was in one though, but that was before I worked there, and that would be another story if I ever remember the details. Also, I was hired there because my older brother worked for them also as a store manager, so there was a reputation with our name at the store. Him being a store manager, and me being one of the top sellers for the department. The manager who hired me didn't know we were brothers until he saw our last name, and this was after he said I was hired. Anyway, I was done with this guy, and I told him also. I went back inside with him demanding the wrench to loosen the bolts, but I told him no, and tossed it back into our toolbox. He was annoyed and demanded a manager, which the cashier called to get him to shut up, and out of the store. Another coworker went with the wrench and loosened it for him. About 5 minutes later, my managers come to the front of the store and ask Jerk what was wrong, and he told them. However, my coworkers heard the insults and told the manager what he said. They called me over the PA system as I was away from the checkout and away from him. I went over, and this is what I came back to. Manager 1. You need to apologize to my associate right now. How dare you insult him when he's been nothing but kind and patient to you? We don't take kindly to customers being rude to them. Jerk. Not very serious. Sorry. Me. Apology accepted. Manager 2. Good. Now you may leave. We are done dealing with you. The guy left shaking his head, and I thought he was muttering to himself, but I didn't care anymore. My managers came up to me and said to not worry about him and that it was a smart idea to get away from him in case the situation escalated. They knew that I have a lot of patience, but even I have my limits. We spoke for a few minutes so I could just get that jerk out of my mind, and my floor manager, who is a nice Jamaican older woman and the one who mainly spoke to Jerk, said, I hope that thing breaks while he's using it. He didn't buy a plan, right? I shake my head, and she said, good, because I don't want him here or the repair center at all. I had a smile on my face for the rest of the shift. That remains my favorite moment of my life to this day. I currently work in a supermarket since I didn't return to the sporting goods store because of lockdown, and my manager there is pretty chill also, and I told him the story, and he said he'd do the same if that ever happened. I had a smug smile the whole time typing this out. Edit. It was a 2-stage snowblower. For some reason, I've just been calling them snow throwers, despite the subtle differences even a little before I left the company, due to work becoming scarce. And with the horsepower part, the snowblower was about 160cc, and even then, I didn't remember the conversion, but it's around 5 horsepower. Someone thought I was a charity worker, then tried to have me arrested. I ran a charitable event for my work around this time last year. We usually put on a carnival to raise money for charity and raise awareness of our company, / establish ourselves in the community, / attract customers, but all the money goes to charity. So I stood up at the carnival and gave a big speech about the importance of the charity and how the cause was personal to me and my family. It funded cerebral palsy research that particular year, and my father lives with it. I was very visible throughout the whole event, sharing my story and raising money and running carnival booths, etc. Fast forward to a couple months ago. I bumped into someone while in line to get coffee who said they had met me at that event last year. We ended up starting a pleasant conversation, so sat outside to drink our coffee together. In hindsight, she seemed a little off, a little tightly wound, but it didn't register over such a brief encounter. She mentioned how she had been so glad to see a large-scale cerebral palsy charity event and hadn't seen us do any events since. I had started to explain the yearly nature of the carnival and how we pick different charities, but she, unintentionally, cut me off, caught up in her own emotions as she began to recount a moving story about a sibling who suffered from the condition. I was telling her how terrible that was and how I completely understood, in reference to my own experiences. Before I could really get into talking about my own story, she checked the clock and said she didn't realize how much time had passed and she needed to go, but she appreciated the work I did and my support listening to her, etc. She began fumbling in her purse for her keys. Then, as she was leaving, she said, "And here's a little something to support your work," producing something folded in a napkin from her purse and leaving it at the side. I'm an interior designer, so I had no idea what she could be talking about in terms of supporting my work, but we were seated just by the street parking, so she was gone too quickly for me to ask. I unfolded the napkin, and to my shock, she had slipped $100 into the napkin. I was dumbfounded with confusion as to why this perfect stranger would give me any money to support my work in commercial interior design without getting anything designed in exchange. It took me a while to figure it out, but I eventually realized she must have come to the carnival and assumed the charity itself had put on the event, so thought I worked for them, not an interior designer firm. It took me 10 to 15 minutes to realize, so it was far too late to try and catch up to her, and all we had exchanged were first names, so I didn't even know where she worked. So without any hope of tracking her down, I figured the best thing to do would be to just donate the money to the charity. I did, and that was that. Fast forward to last month. Somehow or another, this woman came to realize I didn't work for the charity, but am in fact in the for-profit sector. I think it's because I was featured in an online ad the firm's been running. She left a message on my work phone, half angry, half embarrassed, saying she was willing to forego holding me accountable if I paid her back in full. Problem is, I didn't have the money anymore. I donated it. I explained this to her, but she wanted proof. I left her a message. She didn't pick up when I called, explaining the company ran a carnival event to raise money for the charity, but that we aren't the charity ourselves and that I absolutely did donate her money to the charity so she could rest assured. I didn't hear anything back for about 3 days. On the 4th day after I'd left the message, the police show up to our firm's headquarters. We're almost all working remotely because of lockdown, so they unduly terrified our teenage receptionist. I was also scared half to death because I had to leave a serious meeting with my boss in which she asked if I had misrepresented myself as a charitable worker and collected donations in a personal capacity because of the claims this woman made to our business. When I explained, my boss blew her off, and that's when she got the police involved. This woman called and said we were masquerading as a charity, scamming people out of money, so the police came to confirm we were operating a legitimate business. They saw nothing out of the ordinary, obviously, and that was that. Or so we thought. Fast forward to a week later, my boss got a letter from a lawyer. I don't know exactly what it said, but it accused us of scamming this woman and demanding her money be returned. I wish I could have just provided proof of the donation, but I have thousands of emails. I delete most of them, and I could not for the life of me find the confirmation email that reflected my donation. So instead, my boss made another $100 donation to the charity and took a screenshot and sent it to the lawyer. We haven't heard from her, the lawyer, since, so I don't think she was wild about representing this woman in the first place. We have still gotten a couple wild phone calls from the woman saying that since the date on the $100 donation is so recent, it means we still had the money and we should have returned it to her when she asked. Why, if she wanted to donate it to the charity anyways? My boss explaining we donated it the first time and this was a second donation to assuage her concerns has not helped. Eventually, we just blocked her number. Worst part is, due to lockdown, we aren't having a carnival this year, so she'll be even more convinced we were making the whole thing up. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker that kids aren't an excuse? She needs to do her darn job? Background. I have about 14 colleagues and a boss. Of the 16 of us, only 3 of them do not have kids. I am one of the ones that do. I have 3 of them. I'm also a single mom. The issue. One of my coworkers with a kid definitely plays the mom card. I usually hate using that term, as crap comes up when you have kids. But she uses this as to why she can never come in on time, why she needs to leave early, why she's always so preoccupied with her phone, why she can't focus on what she's doing, so then she messes up and we have to fix her mistakes, etc. Her kid is 9 years old, in school all day, not even doing virtual learning, but in school. He's a neurotypical kid with no health issues. I get worrying about him, but like I said, about 80% of us have kids. We all still show up and do our job. And honestly, the excuse of, I have a kid, wears thin, especially about coming in early and late because her husband doesn't work, so he can take care of their son. Our boss defends her and refuses to do anything about her negligence. I do blame our boss more because she just allows it to happen. But I do think my coworker needs to step up while we're at work. I've tried talking to her nicely. She says she'll do better and never does. I've asked if she needs help with something, offering support, and she says she's fine. I also went to HR, and they did diddly squat except have a meeting telling us we all need to pull our weight. Nothing changed. The other day, she did us over again. She was on her phone like she is most of the day and wasn't giving it her all. It was a huge mistake that nearly cost us a client, and it's one that she's made several times before. I admit, I wasn't nice with her about this. I didn't yell, but my tone was clipped, and I told her that she needs to put the dang phone away and actually pay attention to what she's doing. She got in a tizzy, saying that she was texting her husband about their son and she didn't mean to, she's sorry, etc. I said it wasn't okay and she needs to just focus. She then tried saying, I have a kid, my mind is in 2 places. I told her I have 3 kids that all go to different schools. I am here every morning on time, I stay until it's time to go. I may have to take a call from my kids occasionally. I get you think about your kids all the time, but I also manage to do my job. This excuse just doesn't fly anymore. Do your dang job. She quickly went about fixing her mistake and I walked away. She didn't go to HR or our boss over it, but someone else who overheard it did. I was severely reprimanded for this, saying that it's not my job to have talked with her this way. I said maybe not, but the people whose job it was weren't doing anything. I didn't get a formal write-up, but things are tense. Some of my coworkers think I did the right thing. Others think I should have documented it with HR and let it go. I'm torn. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her coworker? Please let us know.
Sounds like OP needs to start her own business. There's nothing worse than having a boss that doesn't hold slackers accountable.
Texas freeze compliance. Neighbor gets the cold shoulder. My wife and I moved into our first rent house in October of 2020. We've lived in many apartments, but finally had the budget to afford to rent a house. We were excited as we have always had a problem with bad neighbors. Not for not trying. We've always tried to be polite and normally keep to ourselves. We met one of our first neighbors a few days ago after moving in, and at first, she seemed pretty nice. She talked to us over the back fence on a semi-regular basis, and my wife loved her dogs. The neighbor runs a foster home for dogs, and my wife loves all animals. Now, let's talk about these dogs for a second, because they are a very big reason that led to the current and still ongoing malicious compliance. These dogs can come and go as they please. They have a large doggy door that they have access to at any time. Sometimes, though, she will let them outside while she goes to run errands and goes to work and close the doggy door off while she is gone. One of these dogs in particular happens to be her personal dog. This is not a foster, and because of that, it will never go to another home. This dog, for no particular reason, will stare through the chain link fence at our window for literal hours on end and bark constantly, normally at a rate of about 1 to 2 barks per second, presumably only taking a break to avoid hyperventilating. I spoke to neighbors about this dog, and it did the same thing in the same spot before we moved here too. Now, remember how I said she lets the dogs out and leaves them out while she's at work? She works nights. This dog will stand outside our window and bark endlessly most nights. The latest that we've experienced this was 1:30 a.m. After a month or 2 of this, we got fed up and decided to talk to the neighbor about the dog. We had barely started the conversation when she scoffed and said,
There is nothing I can do.
She then quickly retreated back inside. Oddly enough, we've gotten used to the noise as it's now late February, and we chose not to bother her about it again. My wife and I aren't a fan of conflict. However, ever since then, she refuses to even acknowledge we exist. I try to say hi occasionally if I catch her when she comes home, and she just flat out ignores it. I ask her how her day is going when she lets her dogs out back. Still nothing. She just goes back inside and shuts the door. As you know, Texas had a bit of a deep freeze situation happen recently. Surprise, I live in Texas. Well, we live in a small town, so when things like that happen here, the whole town basically shuts down. In Texas, this doesn't happen often, and when it does, it is normally for a day or two, and then it all melts away and the town reopens. This time was different. The town went 7 days, not only to shut down, but with no power. My wife and I had ordered some dog food to be delivered the Thursday before and didn't realize how bad things were going to be. By Tuesday, we were completely out of dog food and there was nowhere to go buy any as all the stores were closed. Then I thought of the neighbor. Surely she can look past our differences, whatever they are, and help out a neighbor in need during an emergency, right? I went over to her house with the intention of asking for a few days worth of dog food. I was going to offer to pay for it and even had cash in my wallet to do so. I had just seen her outside an hour before, and when I walked up to the door, I could hear the TV going in the living room. I knocked on the door and the dog started barking inside. The TV kept going and there was no response. I waited a reasonable amount of time so as to not be rude and then knocked again. This time, the TV turned off and the dogs were once again barking. I heard her in a stern but hushed voice telling her dogs to quiet down. She peeked through the curtains where she thought I couldn't see her, and after about 2 more knocks, I gave up and left. After this, I went to another neighbor who happily donated some dog food and even refused to let me pay for it. I was still pretty miffed about the whole ordeal, but again, I'm not much for confrontation, so I wasn't really planning on doing anything about it. That was until all the ice started to melt and I came to a startling realization and began to form my impromptu revenge. I remembered a conversation I had with her right after I moved here about how I am a contractor and I do a lot of residential renovation, in which she delightfully told me that she may have to get me to do some work on her house sometime because, and I quote, "I don't really even know how to swing a hammer properly. I am sure there's a lot wrong with this house, but I don't really know what I'm looking for to find out what needs to be fixed." This is important because after all the snow and ice had melted away and things started to dry up, I noticed a significant but relatively unassuming volume of water flowing down her driveway from her garage. In this part of Texas, and during the era the houses in this neighborhood were built, it is common for your water heater to be located in your garage. It was pretty apparent that a line going to or coming from her water heater had burst during the cold snap. Now, she doesn't park in her garage and instead uses it for storage. The few times I've seen the garage door open, it had boxes stacked floor to ceiling and wall to wall. There's no way she ever goes into her garage unless it's to get something, and if she did, she would open the garage door to do it. I decided that since I'm not a fan of confrontation, and she apparently didn't want to hear from me anyway, that it would be her desire for me to not mention it to her. It has been over a week since everything melted and the water is still flowing. It's roughly the volume of water that you would find coming out of your kitchen sink when you turn it about halfway on. I presume she doesn't know since she hasn't had the water turned off yet. There may have been no contractors over there yet, and she has continued to go to and from work at night and stay inside most of the day. I would imagine she has quite a bit of sheetrock damage, potential rot and mold problems. Anything in the bottom layer of boxes on the garage floor is likely very ruined, and she's racking up one heck of a water bill. But, I don't feel inclined to tell her, and if she works up the courage to come over and ask for help when she realizes what is happening, I'll be sure to turn the TV down, wave from the window, and let her know there's nothing I can do. At least I have one considerate neighbor, though. Am I the jerk for taking my violin back from my sister after she broke my laptop and couldn't pay? She couldn't do her band concert. I'm 22 and went home to visit family a few days ago. I brought my laptop, and when I was home, my 17-year-old sister broke the screen by coming into my room when I was out, which I hadn't wanted her to do anyway, tripping over a chair leg and knocking the laptop off my desk to the ground. I found out it would be $400 to have it fixed, and I asked my sister for the money. She babysits and does other work to make money. She said she needed the money for college and couldn't give me her savings. So I asked my parents if they had asked for her money, and they said no, it was a mistake. I took the violin I'd let her borrow back. I played violin in high school and bought a nice one for myself with money I'd made at a summer job, and decided to sell it to pay for the laptop screen. I'm on a tighter budget and didn't want to be out that money. I didn't tell my sister I was selling the violin because I didn't want the fight. A few days after, my parents called me asking where the violin was, and I said I had sold it to pay for my laptop to be fixed. They were mad because she had a virtual band concert with her high school band that night, and the violin was missing with no warning. They were accusing me of stealing, and I said that it wasn't stealing because I owned the violin and was just lending it. Plus, I wouldn't have had to sell it if my sister or my parents had paid to fix my laptop. But they're really mad because band is something my sister was having on her college admissions, and now she doesn't have an instrument, so she can't participate. She's missing several events, and my parents said I was sabotaging her college admissions. I said it wasn't about that. It was literally just me needing money, and the violin was a convenient thing of mine to sell. Am I the jerk for selling the violin I was lending my sister to pay for a fix to my laptop when she broke it? Entitled Mom thinks our fresh milk is too expensive, wants to buy calf instead. After reading and listening to stories from this subreddit for over a year now, I have dreamed of the day I would encounter a Karen or entitled parent in the wild, never expecting it to ever happen. But today was the day, and boy, what an encounter it was. So for a little bit of background, my grandma works on a medium-sized dairy farm as kind of a manager, and I, 18 female, help her out from time to time. We have a thing called milk filling station. It's basically a vending machine where you can buy fresh milk from us, and it's €1 per liter. We're located on a hill a little outside a small village and surrounded by meadows and forests, so we do get some hikers or families on a nice walk from time to time, especially on the weekends, and they usually look at the calves and buy some milk. One shift here usually includes 4 people. Everyone has different jobs to fulfill, so most of the time you're alone just doing your task, and my job is essential for the milking process, as it includes bringing the cows to the milking station and back to their herds. And now on to the actual story. As I've mentioned, I'm alone most of the time, just doing my thing, running around inside the farm. It's a restricted area. We have signs up since it can be quite dangerous, but the gates are open to make work easier and for ventilation, so theoretically everyone could walk in. Still, I was kinda surprised when I, in the midst of literally shoveling cow dew, was met with a rather annoyed ahem behind me. I turned around, shovel still in hand, and saw a woman maybe in her mid-30s standing before me, way too overdressed to be seen anywhere near a farm. She also didn't look like she was on a casual walk with her family. At least I wouldn't do one in the high heels she was wearing. She was looking at me rather angrily, and I immediately knew that this probably was the day I'd been waiting for, although I never expected it to be here of all places. Before I could even so much as open my mouth, she already started speaking in a very condescending tone to me.
Finally, I've been looking for someone to help me for ages. Why are none of you doing your job and being there when you're needed?
I was instantly annoyed with this woman, because how dare she come in here and talk to me like that? And also, what job was she referring to? Because I, for one, was doing mine right at this moment, and it was strictly timed. I had to get stuff done with zero time to listen to this lady. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and be nice. Sorry, if you're referring to the office in the front, there usually is no one since we're all in here doing our job. What's the problem? Maybe I can help. I thought that maybe she's had a flat tire or something around here and needed help, because I legitimately had no idea what someone dressed like her could want on a dairy farm. She just scoffed at me.
Huh? Unbelievable. You should be over there in case someone needs your help like I do. Anyways, your milk is too expensive.
Me. I'm sorry. What?
I said, your milk is too expensive. I want a better price.
She was saying every word slowly and loudly as if she thought I was disabled. Me. Oh, you're talking about the vending machine. I'm sorry, but that's a fixed price. I can't change that. And in my opinion, she cut me off.
I didn't ask for your opinion. It's way cheaper at the supermarket, but my daughter wanted to try fresh milk, so we drove here. You should match the price at the supermarkets, or you won't sell much.
Me. Ma'am, we're not a supermarket. We're selling the leftover fresh milk so it doesn't go to waste. She cuts me off again.
What? That's leftover milk? Ew. And to imagine my daughter could have drank that.
Now, for clarification, when I said leftover milk, I meant that it was fresh milk, as in barely out of the cow fresh, that we weren't able to sell to the company which collects our milk because they have fixed numbers, and if we produce more milk than those numbers, we would have to throw it away. But with the vending machine, at least some of it still gets sold. If you want fresher milk than that, you would have to milk the cow yourself right into the bottle. I started to try and explain this to the entitled mom, but she immediately cut me off again.
No, this is unacceptable. Neither me nor my child will drink old milk.
And then the dreaded sentence came.
I want to speak to your manager.
I already had enough of this BS, pun intended. And as I've already said, a strictly timed job that I had to get back to, because we were in the middle of milking our cows and this lady was literally holding up the whole process by holding up me. So I was more than happy to agree and get her to my manager, my grandma, and have her out of my hair. I just motioned for her to follow me and speed walked in the direction of the front office, while the lady was trying to keep up in her high heels without breaking her ankles. Now, our office is in kind of another building and the door closest to us was locked, so we had to walk around the building, across the parking lot for the workers, and through another entrance that happened to be right beside the boxes we kept the newborn calves in. This also was the place where I met the before-mentioned daughter of entitled mom. The girl was maybe 10 years old and happily watching the calves and petting them when we came into view. As soon as she saw her mom, she ran to her and started excitingly jumping up and down. Entitled girl, "Mom, Mom, look at the cute calves." She dragged her mom over to the boxes. Entitled girl, "Look, it's so cute. I named her Emma. Can we keep her, please?" I expected the entitled mom to maybe say something along the lines of, "A cow is not a pet," or "We don't have the space," or maybe, "I don't know how to take care of a cow." But boy, was I wrong. Instead, the mom turns to me and asks completely serious,
How much are these?
Now, although we do sell our male calves since they are of no use to us, I for one wasn't sure how much exactly this calf was worth. Pretty sure that there was a registration process involved in owning a cow and in no way, shape, or form authorized to just sell a calf like that. And on top of that, cows aren't exactly animals you can just put in your yard and be done with. I'm sorry, but I was cut off again.
No, I asked how much it is. Tell me.
Ma'am, that's a cow, not a pet.
I know, but your milk is way too expensive anyways. Just sell me one of those if my daughter wants it, and we will have our own, really fresh milk.
At this point, I strongly considered just walking away because there was no way this woman could be serious. She wanted to buy an animal that would grow up to be huge, heavy, and strong enough to hurt you if you handled them wrong. Not only that, but also a cow of a breed that needs to be milked twice a day because it produces as much milk as possible, which is around 30 to 50 liters at our farm. All that because €1 per liter for fresh milk apparently was too much, and her daughter thought our calves were cute. They are, but that's not the point. Plus, you need to properly take care of them, feed them right, and just getting a calf won't give you instant milk. She has to grow up, get pregnant, give birth, etc. All around, this entitled mom would have to wait another 24 to 28 months until her calf starts giving milk, and then repeat the process every year, so she would have new calves to take care of every year just to keep her one cow running, so to speak. Instead of telling her directly how stupid, time and money consuming this idea is, I decided to try and take the more diplomatic way. Ma'am, I understand, but it's not that easy. I'm afraid I'm not able.
Then get me someone who's able. I want to speak to your manager anyways. Why do you have to be such an incompetent worker? How old are you? 15? Kids shouldn't talk back to adults.
That's where I had it. And so I just blurted out the best thing I could think of at the time. I am an adult, and you should stop talking to me like that. I'm not obligated to help you, and in fact, we could sue you for trespassing on private property.
How dare you threaten me? Young lady, that is no way to talk to a person older than you. Learn some respect. I demand to speak to your manager. I will get you fired for this.
As if she was called, my grandma stepped out of the building right at that moment, probably because she heard the commotion. Grandma, what's going on here? Entitled mom.
Oh, good. Are you the manager of this place?
Grandma, at the moment, yes. How can I help you? Entitled mom.
This worker of yours was incredibly rude. She threatened me and my daughter and refused to help us. She even tried to assault me right before you came outside. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been on time.
Entitled mom was trying to squeeze some fake tears out at this point, quickly swiping them away with her finger before they could ruin her very thick layer of makeup. Entitled mom.
All we wanted was to ask if we could get the milk you are selling a little cheaper. And my daughter here really likes this calf over there, so we thought about buying it.
My grandma was just silently listening to this woman's story, arms crossed and an eyebrow raised, because she could smell the BS from 3 miles away. Grandma: "Ma'am, this is my granddaughter you're talking about, and I know for a fact that she wouldn't do any of that." Entitled Mom went awfully quiet at that. Grandma: "So, about the milk. I maybe would have helped you out if you hadn't just lied to my face, but now I kindly ask you to just pay the full price as everyone else does. And the calf, I'm afraid I won't be able to sell it to you." Entitled Mom:
This is outrageous. I'm a paying customer. I would pay for this calf. Why are you refusing? My daughter wants a cow, and she likes this one there.
Entitled Girl:
Her name is Emma.
Grandma: "Ma'am, that won't give you a cow. It will give you a bull. It's a male calf." Entitled Mom:
You're lying. You just don't want to sell it because it's pretty.
My grandma just silently pointed to the big male symbol on the side of the box, clearly labeling it as a boy. At this point, the Entitled Mom just huffed and mumbled something about stupid, uneducated people from the countryside and how she would never come back here again, which I would also really appreciate. The Entitled Girl was whining loudly about her Emma, while her mom was dragging her back to their expensive-looking car, and my grandma and I watched them drive away before having a good laugh about the whole story. Speaking of milk, what's your favorite kind of milk to drink? Please let us know.
Chocolate milk all day, bruh. The kind that comes in the big gallon at the grocery store.
Am I the jerk for no longer allowing my sister to work in my daycare after what she did? Hi, I'm a 32-year-old widow. Have been for 3 years. I struggled a lot financially. I didn't get help from my family because they claimed they can't, so I decided to start a home daycare. It's been open for 7 months now. My friend was able to get me more clients via Facebook. Thank goodness my business is growing, and I've made quite a lot of friends who are moms, and also established good reputation since my daycare has been recommended. My sister, 26, is unemployed, didn't find a job yet, and had rent to pay for her and her boyfriend. My parents suggested I let her come work with me at my daycare, and accepted since she has experience in the past. I agreed to let her come and earn her living. She got along with the other workers, and things were going fine, until she came to me asking about a specific kid that comes to our daycare. He's 4, very well behaved for his age. I was confused after she complained about him. She said she saw his dad come over to pick him up and didn't feel comfortable when she saw him because he's a police officer, and she had an unpleasant incident with the police because of something her boyfriend did that she needed therapy for and struggled a lot from. She wanted me to let the kid go and tell the parent to look for another daycare. He usually arrives at 3 p.m. to pick the kid up. From what I understand, his wife's sick. I refused. I've no good reason to let the kid go. My sister refused to drop it and started being mean to the dad. It was unprofessional of her. I told her she either be respectful or I won't have her work with me anymore. 2 days ago, she sent an email to the dad telling him we won't be welcoming his kid at the daycare anymore. He came to talk to me, and I was livid when I saw the email. He asked why and talked about his kid wanting to stay because he's friends with other kids. Talked about not being able to find a daycare closer than ours. I lashed out at my sister, and I told her she's no longer able to work at the daycare because of her behavior. We got into an argument, and she left after saying I was being unsupportive and inconsiderate. My parents called me saying I shouldn't have kicked out my sister, and I'm now causing her to lose her apartment. They argued I have no regard for my sister's trauma, and I should have let the kid go and supported her because she's my sister. Everyone shamed me and claimed I had messed up priorities. I felt I was in the wrong for letting her struggle now without a job, but I have no reason to let go of the kid as well. He wears a uniform. My aunt suggested that I ask him to get someone else to come and pick up his kid, or at least I let her leave before 3 p.m. and arrive a bit late in the morning. But others would notice the difference in treatment at the daycare. I understand that there are parents struggling, and I do all I can to help out and be supportive. Yes, she's my younger sister, but treating people like that was unprofessional of her. One thing to clarify, my sister's boyfriend is in no contact with my family due to issues. However, they said they want to support my sister and be in contact with her and support her, although they don't have a relationship with her boyfriend. That's why they keep pressuring me to help and support her. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
When someone goes behind your back and puts your business at risk, you fire them. That sister's a liability waiting to happen.
My boss used me for malicious compliance 5 years ago, and I just figured it out. About 5 years ago, I was the office guy for a small lumber mill. My direct supervisor was the general manager, but the owner was also pretty hands-on. The mill wasn't generating as much profit as the owner believed it could. He was probably right. The guy was smart as a whip with 60-plus years of experience. One of the things the owner tried to do was hire an outside consultant to try and find ways we could safely increase productivity or cut expenses. The guy had owned and operated his own mill and also had a ludicrous amount of experience. One of the things the consultant had been pushing for was running the mill into overtime. He thought we could increase productivity without incurring more expense than we gained. My boss asked me to run an analysis of how much we would gain/lose if we ran overtime. I did the math and gave him the results. Even in the best case, every minute of overtime would result in a net loss to the company. This report had taken me several hours as I wanted to be sure I gave him the right answer. My boss took it, nodded, and the next day announced we would be running the mill in overtime. 2 weeks later, when I prepared the end-of-month financial statements, it showed a large loss. I was quietly seething since I felt like I had been asked a pointless question, my time wasted, and my input ignored. But looking back on it with significantly more experience, I think I know what happened. I think my boss was bothered by the consultant who had come in to tell him how to do his job and then given him bad advice. The owner wouldn't listen to my boss telling him he didn't need a consultant, so he did exactly what the consultant suggested and let the owner judge for himself. As far as my report went, I think he just wanted to be sure it wouldn't cost us too much when we pulled the trigger. Tom, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I was resentful about the whole affair for the past 5 years. My bad. Entitled Pool Mom's Plans Backfire. This happened in late July of 2019. Me, 17, female, and my family, what I call my family and parents' friends' family that I grew up with, were at a pool at a super hot day. It was midday and the pool was packed. For some background, we were at a campground with 2 pools, so the pool I was in was filled with older kids and adults, while the other one was for the kids and the toddlers. The larger pool had been crowded by multiple families, and all the tables near the pool were filled. I had been floating on a pool tube in the pool, watching my friends play around me, and casually listening into my parents' and their friends' conversations. I was just vibing when I noticed some commotion coming from my left side. I saw maybe 6 boys, aging from 10 to 14, playing with a water basketball set, the ones where you shoot from inside the pool. They were just being kids, and every once in a while, the ball would roll away from the pool and one of them would jump out to get the ball. It just so happened that the ball had rolled in the direction of our entitled parent. Entitled parent was with her 3 little kids. She started yelling at the boys. It's been a while since this happened, but I'll try to be as accurate as possible. Karen.
Hey, quit playing so rough around my kids. You're making too much noise and getting my stuff all wet from your splashing, etc.
She went on this rant for a while, yelling at the boys for playing in the pool. She cried about how her baby was getting splashed and how rude the boys were. At this point, the boys had all stopped to watch her in shock. I saw one of the boys look like he was about to cry. This is when I stepped, or floated in. Me. Excuse me, ma'am. Her gaze turned to me, and if looks could kill, I would have combusted then and there.
What?
Me. The boys are just playing. Let them be. Your kids are nowhere near them and aren't bothered at all. This is the camp pool. Let the kids play and leave them alone. Did I mention her own kids were on the other side of the pool splashing each other? She got red in the face and grumbled at me to shut up, but didn't really do much. The boys thanked me and I thought the incident was over. Or so I thought. About 5 minutes later, I saw her still glaring at me, but I did my best to ignore her. I saw her skirt and walked over to her kids. She whispered to them something. They got super excited and started to run at me. I was slightly confused until I realized they weren't stopping. They ran at me and launched themselves into the pool to splash me. Now I have glasses and I'm pretty much blind without them, so I wear them in the pool with me if I'm just floating, like I was that day. Once I cleared the water from my glasses, I saw the kids giggling in the water, running to the ladder, and then the Karen just giving a smug grin. Then I had an idea. I grinned right back at her and then turned to her kids with a laugh and said with a smile, "Me, is that the best you got? I barely noticed any splash. Hit me again." The kids lit up with joy and quickly scrambled out of the pool and tried to splash me again. Each time I would laugh and encourage them to try again. This quickly turned into all the kids in my area trying their hardest to make the biggest splash and me ranking each splash. I will cherish the face the entitled parent gave me when she realized her plan of messing with me completely backfired and how she couldn't stop what was happening without her upsetting her kids. It was glorious. Am I the jerk for refusing any more communication with a girl who's not my daughter? Years ago, in my early 20s, I was contacted by my ex from high school telling me I had a daughter, Sarah, who was already 6 at the time. It was a pretty huge shock to me. I was still young and had no idea how to be a father to a young kid. But I met her anyways. I know it was pretty dumb of me to have just taken my ex's word for it, but I genuinely thought Sarah was mine. I met Sarah a couple of times a month for 4 months in order to get to know her. Even took her to Disneyland once. My brothers had known about her, but they were surprised when they found out I never asked for a paternity test. It didn't even occur to me until we had that talk. So right away, I told my ex I wanted a paternity test, and what do you know? Kid wasn't mine. That's when she confessed she knew who the father was, but he had passed when Sarah was a few months old and she just wanted her daughter to have a dad. I stopped having contact right after that and told her to find another father figure for her daughter. Through the power of social media, Sarah, now 18, found me and initiated contact. At first, I had no idea who she was until she mentioned X's name. As it turned out, my ex never told her the truth, only that I had to go, whatever that means. But Sarah's been trying to find me, I guess, and wanted us to have contact. I didn't want to be the one to tell Sarah, so I said, speak with your mom about why I wasn't around. X finally told her, I guess, because Sarah messaged me again asking if we could meet. She said she knows I'm not her father, but I'm the only one she knows and would still like for us to have something between us. I told her it would be better if we didn't. Yes, I was in her life for a short period, but we are both strangers now. I have my own life with my own family, and she should focus on making her own family with people she cares about. Sarah was clearly not happy with it, and she sent me more messages and tried to video call me. I told her we won't be having more contact, and I blocked her. A few days ago, I find out she contacted my other family on Facebook, my sisters and one of my brothers. They heard her side of this and are saying I'm being too hard on the kid. My sister says she may not be mine, but to her, I am still the only father figure she had in her life, so why not continue being that for her? It feels so insane to me. I have a wife and a son. She's not my daughter. It's hard to see how not wanting any more contact is something bad. I told my family that they are free to take up the mantle if they want, but I won't have anything else to do with her. But their argument is she wants me as a father figure in her life, and that's why I'm being too heartless with her. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP being the jerk or not? Please let us know.
My heart really goes out to that young lady. I hope she's all right.
Karen and Ken started yelling at serving staff. I politely told them to get the heck out. A couple of weeks ago, I went out to breakfast while waiting for my car to get repaired. Just my luck, there was a mom and pop diner right down the road, and I went in and got a delicious meal. I worked serving industry for 3 years and still work customer service. I can't stand my meal being interrupted by some jerk being dramatic in public. It was a really slow morning, and I felt bad for the waitstaff. I was one of the 2 parties seated. Another couple comes in, and they're seated for about 4 to 5 minutes, and the servers are chatting. Like I said, there was almost no one there at the moment. Anyways, new table decides it's time to order. The servers are chatting it up, and the guy speaks up a little bit. Can y'all stop talking and take our order? The server immediately apologized and ran over to the table. Instead of giving them their order and moving on, he started berating her for being unprofessional. Decided she rolled her eyes at him and gets up while slamming his chair and stuff, saying it was the worst service he ever received, and he's leaving. "How dare you roll your eyes at a customer?" was the quote that stood out. So he's making his way to the door, repeating insults, and of course, a party of 5 comes in. And this irked party of 2 is being loud as they bump into the party of 5, says, "Don't even walk into this place. You don't want their food or to talk to these." I couldn't deal anymore. "Sir, that's enough. You said you were going to leave. Now shut the heck up. Stop being dramatic and leave. The food is fantastic. The service has been—" "What did you say to me?" "I said leave." Turning to face the party of 5 that looks like deer stuck in headlights standing by the entryway. "The food has been fantastic. Sorry for the theatrics. That dude needs to go. Please have a seat wherever you're most comfortable." The Ken and Karen are looking at each other and me bewildered, but eventually the wife nudges the husband to leave the store. The place starts to settle. 3 servers come up to me and say thank you. Eventually, my check came my way, and the table of 5 loudly asked the manager to give me a discount for getting them to stay. The servers even asked me to come back again soon, going to stop in today for a great breakfast. Am I the jerk for not wanting to give my ex money for our kid until I see a bill? I, 32, male, have 2 kids with my ex, 34, female, who are 7 and 5. When we broke up, I did not want to deal with court-ordered child support, so we agreed to an unofficial amount of financial compensation. However, my ex knew I didn't want to deal with the courts and used that as a veiled threat whenever she wanted something. Anytime I got something for myself or she heard about a new promotion at work, she demanded copies of my pay stubs for the last 3 months and wanted half. If I objected, she would pull the, "Well, maybe we should just let a judge decide." After 2 years of this crap, I told her I simply could not afford to keep paying the amounts she wanted and afford rent/food. She thought I was lying, even though I showed her my pay stubs and filed for child support. My parents were kind enough to lend me money for a decent attorney so I'd have a decent change. But my God, I never would have thought that the courts would rule in my favor. Based off of my income, the courts determined that I had been overpaying for each kid and ordered that I could pay a lesser amount and that my ex couldn't request for more until my kids were 9 and 7. It was also determined that I wouldn't be legally obligated to start paying the new amount for 6 months. Literally after the ruling, we were standing outside the doors of the courtroom. My ex and her attorney approached me and asked me to pay a higher amount. I shrugged and said that it would be best not to go against the judge's ruling and left. Finally, I was able to get my own place, a nicer, still used, car and clothes. My ex has been calling and texting me for money, saying that the kids needed this and that. I told her that I'll pay for the necessities when the kids were with me, but she needed to figure everything out herself for the time being. She raged at me and called me a deadbeat, and then started dragging me on social media. To defend myself, I made a post about how the courts ruled and attached screenshots of her texts, always using the threat of the courts to get her way. I then finally stated that I do want to provide for my kids, so if there's anything that they need, to give me copies of the bills or an expense report and I will look into paying for things directly. My ex and her family are saying that I am the jerk and controlling for wanting to know about her finances, but I don't see it as any different from how she treated me. So, am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his ex? Please let us know.
Be careful who you procreate with.
Am I the jerk for giving myself the bigger piece? We have one of those meal kit delivery services, and one of the meals this week was a salmon dish. I'm a big salmon fan, and my husband thinks it's okay, but prefers other things. More often than not, with this service, whenever there are 2 whole pieces of meat, like a steak or something, one of them will be bigger than the other. In this case, one salmon piece was practically double the size of the other. Normally, when this happens, I give my husband the bigger piece since I'm a small lady and don't need as much food. But since salmon is my favorite, I figured it would be okay to give myself the big piece this week. I grilled him up a hot dog to go with his meal so that he would have the same amount of food to eat. He didn't say anything during the meal, but afterwards, when we were on the couch together, he asked me why I cut the salmon so uneven and gave myself so much more. I told him that it was actually pre-cut, and he didn't love salmon as much as I did, so I thought it would be okay for me to have the bigger piece. He then turns to me and said it was humiliating to be served a hot dog with his meal, and that if the portion really was that inadequate, I should have made a pork chop or something on an equal standing as the salmon to make up for it. I told him that I don't have a single pork chop lying around. He tells me I could have gone to the store. I say, well, what is the point of getting meals delivered if I have to go out to the store? He was really upset about it, more upset than I've ever seen him at such a small issue. I told him that if he was still hungry, he could make some mac and cheese or something from the pantry. He says he shouldn't have to do that, and that I shouldn't just assume that he wouldn't want the bigger piece. I told him I wanted the bigger piece, just this once, and that if he was going to throw a tantrum over it, then maybe he would be happier cooking his own meals from now on. He stormed upstairs and had left for work early by the time I woke up this morning. Was it really that bad? Edit. So pretty much whoever said he's mad or stressed about something else was right on target. He called me this morning and apologized and said that his boss had yelled at him over a client's error and it had really stressed him out and he was all wound up because of that and made a fuss over something that wasn't a big deal. I told him I accepted his apology and I didn't appreciate him taking work problems out on me. He agreed and promised that next time he was having a bad day, he would find an outlet and calm himself down. I said, hey, everybody gets a mulligan, so we're all good. I have to work late tonight, so he's going to pick up some ramen for us to have a late dinner with extra eggs for me because they are my favorite. Karen's sister acts like she's pregnant even though she's not. I, 35, female, am pregnant with my sister's 30 female child. My sister has some fertility issues and is not able to have a safe pregnancy. I offered to carry the baby for her and her husband. I'm now currently 6.5 months along and everything is going well. Once we found out I was pregnant, my sister made the decision to live like she herself is the one who was pregnant. I found it odd, but I didn't see an issue with it. I understood that she's going through an emotional time. I mainly thought this was going to be something just between her and her husband. I was wrong, and she's begun to act pregnant in her daily life. At first, it was just small things, like having her husband run out to get her food she was craving, but it developed into things like wearing maternity wear. She also gets annoyed if I talk about my cravings or pregnancy symptoms around her. These things don't bother me much, and I just think my sister wants to feel involved. Today, my sister wanted to go shopping to look at baby things since the stores have reopened in our area. The day started with her getting angry whenever sales staff would talk to me. I would explain to the salesperson that my sister is the mother whenever it was needed. After a few stores, we arrived at a baby retailer where she wanted to make a baby registry. By this point, I was extremely tired and wanted to go home. I had told my sister this, and she promised this would be the last store. I must have looked exhausted because as we were waiting, the salesperson brought over a chair for me to sit in while the registry paperwork was done. When she brought it over, she did say something like, "Here's a chair for Mom." I didn't correct the salesperson this time and just sat down. My sister told me to get up and give her the chair after I had sat down. I asked her why and tried explaining that I was tired. My sister berated me by saying that the salesperson said the chair was for the mom and that she was supposed to sit. She said that this was her registry appointment and how dare I act like this was all about me. She said she was the one who was the expectant mother and that she needed to sit down now. I told my sister that yes, she is going to be the mother, but I am the one that is currently pregnant. I snapped at her that she is not actually pregnant and does not get how exhausting it can be. I told her I'm trying my best to appease her, but she's being ridiculous. My sister began to cry, saying that I was shaming her for not being able to get pregnant and that I was making fun of her. I tried to defend myself and tell her that's not what I meant. She wouldn't listen and ran out of the store. Everyone in the store was staring at us. They were looking at me like I was a complete monster after hearing what my sister said. My mother said that I should have just let my sister have the seat. I know this whole thing must seem so small and stupid because it's about a chair. I don't know if I am the jerk in this situation or not. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister? Please let us know. I'm actually concerned for his sister, to be honest. The hotel you wanted to stay at no longer exists. Back in the late 90s, I worked bar in a small town in rural Ireland. About 500 people, 3 pubs, 1 hotel. It's a wee seaside village and quite picturesque, and is therefore plagued by tourists during any holidays. We lived directly opposite the hotel. The hotel was about to be razed to the ground and rebuilt without the 60 years of nicotine stains. The demolish was due to start in January and the work was due to be completed sometime in 2003. It's a small town. Everyone knows everything as long as it's about someone else's business. The hotel's reception phone number is 1 number away from my parents' landline number. It's New Year's Eve, or more accurately, 4 a.m. on New Year's Day. I'm home from my shift dealing with drunk jerks that, as this was in the 90s, want nothing but Baileys and cream de menthe shots and Bacardi breezers, with the occasional Irish coffee and a pint of Guinness that they'll order last as an afterthought and then complain about the wait. 4 a.m., my parents' living room. I'm having a wee decompress and a whiskey. Phone rings. Instinct kicks in. Town name Harbor Bar. Happy New Year. A slurred Belfast accent winds into my auditory canal. For most people reading this, when you think of an Irish accent, you probably think of a Cork or Galway accent, nice and lyrical. This is not the case with a spidey Belfast accent. Think of a dentist drill that runs on tonic wine ordering McDonald's through its nasal passages. Alright, I've had a cracking time tonight. We're booking the same nights for next year. Room 109, Jamie Jerkface. Me. Oh, sorry mate. The hotel is closing in January and reopening in 2003, and the number for reception is 555-5545. This is a private residence.
How the heck would you know that? You said this was the bar. Just put me through to reception, you lazy jerk.
Me. Hey, buzz off, mate. Hangs up. Phone rings again.
Don't you dare hang up on me, you cow lover.
Belfast people often accuse the rurals of cow loving, which is odd because pigs are so much lower maintenance and you can test cosmetics on them to pretty them up. Town name hotel reception is 555-5545. This is a private residence, 555-5554. Don't call again. This happens a few more times because the daft drunk jerk is just hitting redial. It escalates with varying degrees as we've both been drinking, me to a lesser extent. I unplug the phone from the wall. A few minutes pass, I'm formulating a plan. I plug the phone back in. The phone rings. I put on my best receptionist voice. Good morning, town name hotel reception. How can I help you? Is this Mr. Jerkface from room 109? How may I be of service?
That's better. I want to book for the next year's same night.
Certainly, Mr. Jerkface. We have a 50% loyalty discount as your previous guest. Same days?
Right.
Okay, that's all booked in for next year. Arriving on the morning of the 31st, yes?
Brilliant.
Wonderful. We will see you then. That year, I went away to uni, came back for Christmas. Many things happened in the time in between, but then New Year's Eve came along. My folks and I were in the living room looking out at a gigantic hole that used to be the hotel, and our other windows look out but over the bay, and having a few beers. A car we don't recognize pulls up opposite the hole where the hotel used to be, and three confused-looking Belfast Spideys get out beside the big hole where town name hotel was. Something clicks in the back of my head, and I'm just laughing. I explain the whole thing to my dad, who I'd relayed the story to. These jerks drove about an hour to get here just to find out they've got nowhere to stay. We enjoy the show and open fresh tins as they start screaming at each other in front of our house. It was a fun New Year's Eve. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend she can't show me any more TikToks? The last few months, TikTok has become my 20 male, girlfriend's 20 female, only personality trait. Sitting watching TV together? TikTok. Laying in bed? TikTok. Standing around making breakfast? TikTok. I wouldn't really care, except she insists that I watch every video with her. Every time I look away, it's, oh, look at this one. And then she proceeds to show me the 100th unfunny video of the day. She has a bad habit of making me watch her on her phone, showing me literally every single thing that comes on her screen. Whatever, I can just nod and pretend I care. But now she'll show me these stupid videos and then try to explain why they're funny to me when I don't laugh, which only annoys me more. The second I wake up until the second I go to sleep, she's trying to show me TikToks. Clearly, she hadn't gotten the message that I literally do not care what these random unfunny teens post on the internet. I've told her before to take it easy with showing me the TikToks because I don't find them enjoyable like she does. But she continues to constantly show me more, only now she adds this, oh, this is the last one, I swear it's really funny. Spoiler, it's not. This morning I had been awake for all of 2 minutes when the TikTokscapade started. 3 waste of time videos later, I rolled over to ignore them better, and she got all sad and tried guilt-tripping me about watching those stupid things. Well, I finally had enough and rolled over and told her she's not allowed to show me TikToks anymore. They're annoying, boring, and a waste of time, and I can't stand to watch another single video. She called me a jerk and said I really hurt her feelings, but unfortunately, I really do not care. I hate TikTok, it's a cancer. And besides, it's not like I'm saying I hate anything she's created. Am I the jerk? Edit. So I've had a few questions about shared interests and this being her hobby. Her and I have been together for over 3 years, and this girl is the most talented artist, dancer, and writer I've ever met. So many passions I love about her. We're both in college, living in the same building, so we spend basically all of our time together. We have plenty of things we do together. Video games, movies, cooking, we even make puzzles together. The only thing that gets to me is the dang obsession with TikTok. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
There's 2 types of people in this world. Those who love TikTok and those who don't.
Entitled stepmom bought me a locket for Christmas only so she could steal it. I've always loved the concept of a locket. I have a small collection of them now, each a reminder of someone I love, but this one I never replaced. This happened back in 2011 when I was 13 years old. I'd been wanting a 4-picture locket to have pictures of my younger half-brother and 3 cousins on my dad's side. Since I had been wanting it for months and Christmas coming up, I asked my biological dad for it, though I honestly didn't expect to come through. His new wife made it clear she favored her 2 sons, my stepbrother and half-brother, and wanted as little to do with me and my older brother, even if I didn't fully understand what was happening at the time. This often meant gifts for me and my brother were an afterthought over the years. I had lost count of how they had gotten us that useless or something we didn't want. For example, clothing that's 2 sizes too small. So I was surprised when I went down for Boxing Day and my first gift given to me after opening our stockings was the locket I had wanted. It was beautiful. It was a silver heart with a smaller heart engraved in the center, and it opened like a 4-leaf clover. It had no pictures in it, but my biological dad promised me he would email the photo of my little brother, and I was going to call my uncle as soon as I got home, but that would never happen. When I got home the next day, I was unpacking and couldn't find the locket anywhere. It wasn't in my suitcase or my backpack. I was devastated. When I talked to his wife, she said I had forgotten it on the table and that I could grab it next time I was down at their house. I was so stupid when I was younger. I never thought to question why I didn't remember taking it out of my bag. It would be the end of January before I visited them again. When asked about the locket, I was told that they had tried to get the pictures done for me, but the photos had come out blurry and had to be redone. This was the story I got for weeks, that they were waiting for the photos, and then it changed to they had misplaced the locket and couldn't find it. I was more devastated than when I'd realized I hadn't taken it home, as it had gone from I had to wait to get it back to I was never getting it back. Then Easter happened. I was down at biological dad's for Easter that year. I was taking turns with my little brother hiding plastic eggs around the living room for my other when biological dad's wife came downstairs. She was wearing the locket. She must have taken the fact that I had stopped asking about it that I must have forgotten about the locket. I didn't say anything when I saw it, though the look was almost like she wanted me to. What had hurt the most wasn't having the locket stolen, it was the fact that my biological dad had known about what she had done and had been lying to me about it. It was the first time I understood that he didn't love me anymore. He was more interested in doing her bidding than protecting his kids. Am I the jerk for reporting night nurse neighbor for a hit and run? Neighbor witnessed, took pics, and said she stayed there for a bit while freaking out, then proceeded to park on the other side of the parking lot, went upstairs and came back down with a rag and attempted to buff out the scratches and fix the dents, and then went back upstairs and didn't return. Cue to around 12:30 p.m. We walked past significant other's car and gaped in horror as the parking spot the other driver parked in was still empty except for a few pieces of their car where they had bumped into it. There are pretty large dents and scrapes from the driver's side all the way back to the wheel. Along with those were the buff marks from where the neighbor tried to fix it. Neighbor saw us and told us what happened. We went to our leasing office to see if they knew the owner as she left no note. They said the vehicle wasn't registered in their system. I called the police to file a report because at this point, it seemed pretty clear that she wasn't going to contact us, and I've heard horror stories where people try to blame the not-at-fault party for pre-existing damage. Police had their car towed/impounded, spoke with witnesses, and took pieces of her vehicle she left behind. An investigator called and informed us that she was a night nurse and was driving home from an exhausting shift and admitted to panicking, and she claimed she went upstairs to write a note, but then fell asleep. She was cited for a hit and run. Investigators said we did the right thing, and he would have done it as well. Yesterday evening, my significant other found a note taped to his car that said, "I'm so sorry, I accidentally scratched your car up a little. I feel really bad. Here's my number. I want to keep insurance out of it. I tried to find your car to leave a note after, but it was gone by then." I'm infuriated, but conflicted. She blatantly lied in the note about the car being gone when it wasn't moved the whole time. My significant other thinks we should contact her and offer to pick her up from work since she may be in a situation where she doesn't have the support. I disagree. Since we have the report and had to go through police to even find out her insurance/contact info, I feel justified in letting her insurance pay for the damages and having no other contact with her. We don't know her. Had she left a note, I'd probably feel differently, but I don't get that impression that she's sorry. Well, what would you do in the situation? Would you show mercy to the night nurse or not? Please let us know.
Heck no. She thought she was gonna get away with it.
Stop booking a room you cannot pay for and stop saying you've stayed here before for a cheaper price. I was checking in a lady who booked the room with a third party, and the first thing she asks was,
"How much is the rate on my reservation?"
So you know I asked for her name, so she gave it to me and I checked. Alright, your rate for our biggest room is $120 before taxes, and she looks me dead in the eyes and asks,
"Well, how much is the total with taxes?"
So I go into my system again, and while I'm looking for the total, I ask for her ID and card she's using in the meantime. She kept asking me if she needs a credit card that she would rather pay with debit. Sure thing, credit, debit, it doesn't matter. So while she's looking for her ID, she asks,
"Well, how much is it?"
I was irritated with the way she presents herself at check-in and how she's raising her tone, so I tell her, "I'll check once I get your ID in form of payment." Absolutely lie coming up. I can't check for the total without both. So she finds her ID and card she used to make the reservation. In total, the room came up to $165.13 with taxes and the authorization upon check-in. This woman pulls the,
"Let me try this card first,"
and it failed. Tried the second card and it also failed. She then asked me again,
"Does it have to be credit?"
Yet after I told her it can be debit or credit. Her debit card didn't work and none of her other cards did. Her husband had to pay for it and he was absolutely mad. I asked her if she needed our biggest room.
"Well, what does it have?"
"Oh, well, nothing. It's just bigger in size and bedrooms separated with a mini living room and kitchen." She then tells me,
"Oh, we don't need it, but it sounds nice."
"Well, you could barely afford it." Another lady comes in as a walk-in. She needs a room with 2 beds, and I tell her that our 2 beds are sold out. So she asks for our single rooms and how much the price was. It's $109.99 before tax. Is that okay? She already had that face that you just know would tell you,
"Let me talk to the husband."
Yet before she could leave, she said,
"Oh wow, it was much cheaper the last time I stayed. I wonder why the price went up,"
and left. Didn't care someone is going to get that room anyways. But she comes back and asks for the room for a much cheaper price. Kept mentioning the whole "stayed here before" thing. Alright, you've been here? Well, let me go ahead and ask for your ID and we'll see what your last rate was so we can honor that rate for you. She gives me her ID and I started searching for her profile to pop up. And nothing. No profile came out with her name. Sorry ma'am, you don't seem to have stayed with us before. Maybe it was the same hotel, different location.
"No, it was this exact location. It was way cheaper than your 109. I don't understand why you can't lower it. Whatever, I guess we'll head to a much fancier hotel."
Fine by me. She came back 10 minutes later and paid $109.99. Glad to make business with you. Close all the deals we can to meet quota? Okay. This happened back in 2010. I had started working for a cemetery/funeral home combination a couple of years before this all took place. We had around 10 salespeople on our team and worked for a major corporation. At first, we had an amazing sales manager, Jim. He had actually worked at that location as a sales rep years prior and understood what we dealt with each day. He was extremely supportive and brought a great work culture to the team. Jim encouraged us to help families to the best of our abilities, and sales were simply a byproduct of that process, so everyone involved benefited, including the families we served. We were so successful that Jim received a promotion in 2010 to a regional market manager position in a different area, leaving us without a sales manager at our location. The rest of the sales team and I speculated that the company would bring in another manager from a smaller location to help continue our success. Instead, they decided to hire from outside the company. The guy they chose to replace Jim with was a sales manager from a major insurance company. We'll call him Jerk. While Jerk had a background in sales management, he knew close to nothing about what it was like in the funeral industry, and he had a style of management completely unlike that of Jim. At first, some of us tried to make him aware of the team culture we had in place and how things would virtually run themselves if he would simply maintain what Jim had accomplished. Jerk became very dismissive and went as far as putting a label on the bottom of his coffee mug that read, "The Boss." Anytime someone would try to speak with him about the mistakes we believed he was making, he would take a sip of his coffee, thus showing the label. It was basically a "forget you." While this succeeded in shutting down complaints, it also alienated him from the sales team. He would also often brag about his past achievements and failed to acknowledge current success of our team members. It didn't take long before morale started to decline and sales performance began to slow. This was when we found out why Jerk changed industries. It became clear that Jerk had a drinking problem. He started disappearing around noon and would return a couple of hours later smelling of alcohol and appeared red-faced and very relaxed. Jerk also hired on a new sales rep to join the team. She was far different from the rest of us. She was young, good-looking, and very, very smug. We shall call her Karen. Karen had a background in business-to-business sales and did not mesh into the family culture we had developed over the years. Her arrogance made it clear that Jerk had big plans for her to be promoted quickly through the ranks. It was about that same time when we also heard of an incident involving Jerk during his 2 weeks of training at corporate headquarters. Jerk allegedly fell asleep while watching the Super Bowl and left the bathtub faucet on in his hotel bathroom. It was running long enough to overflow the tub and flooded 2 rooms below his, one of which was the hotel's IT room, causing around $20,000 in damages. This knowledge, combined with Jerk's apparent drinking habits, told us a lot about how he handled stress. As morale continued to decline along with our sales revenue, Jerk became more and more irritated. We had daily sales meetings, and his desperation began to show. It was clear that the corporation was pressuring Jerk to improve sales and that his job was in jeopardy. It's important to note that sales manager had the ability to give team incentives in order to motivate a team when necessary. While Jim had occasionally offered incentives, it was never anything like what Jerk offered our sales team at that time. We tried to explain to Jerk that it was a slow time of year for sales and that pushing customers too hard often ended up with less than ideal outcomes in the end. Jerk was having none of it. He promised that he would take the entire team out to celebrate if we hit our sales quota for the month. His incentive was a riverboat cruise for each salesperson plus 1 guest each if we simply hit our quota for the month. He said that if we had any customers that were on the fence, that we should do whatever we had in order to close the deal. We all agreed to do just that. For the next week and a half, we called every contact we could and pushed every deal towards a contract until we hit quota. We never sold anyone anything they didn't actually want, but we simply pushed to get it done sooner. The end result was we barely made our quota for the month. Jerk quickly took pride that he had pulled it off and made his quota for the next month and booked the riverboat cruise as he had promised. He even arranged for a limo ride to and from the cruise. My wife and I, however, decided to drive ourselves. We are not big drinkers and normally wouldn't even go on something such as a riverboat cruise, but there was no way I was going to miss out on what was about to unfold. You see, what I also heard was that the regional manager for our area, the person that hired Jerk, was also going to be present on the cruise. I also knew that Jerk would make sure there was a full bar available on the company dime. I was right. My wife and I agreed in advance to have 1 drink each and to do a little dancing together, as we rightly deserved. However, what we really came to do was sit and watch. As expected, Jerk showed his true colors by drinking up a storm and running up a huge bill for the company. Better yet was that Karen and her date celebrated to an extreme. At the end of the cruise, my wife and I walked back to our car. Karen and her date were passed out and sprawled on a park bench on the dock. Jerk was trying to round everyone up to the limo. The following Monday brought the new month and our new sales tanked. We had burned through every lead we had the month prior and were left sitting at our desks with no leads. During each sales meeting that followed, Jerk became more and more desperate until he finally flipped out in the middle of a meeting. This alarmed one staff member, not me. Jerk was called into an HR meeting that resulted in his termination. Karen disappeared around the same time. Things at that location continued to take on a more corporate vibe, so I left that job a few years after that. About 5 years later, I saw Jerk living out of his car with 2 small dogs at the local bus station. We locked eyes for a moment, and I just smiled. I really do wish him the best, but I also hope he learned something about humility. My first experience with this kind of Karen. First, a description of what I look like. I'm short, thin, and look like I'm in my teens. I'm not, I'm 24. Wearing a big gray coat with a green shirt underneath and blue jeans. Also using my red wireless headphones and wearing a mask with skulls printed on it. I'm at my local grocery store where the uniform is dark red with orange highlights, so I look nothing like them. I'm looking at one of the shelves, seeing what snacks and drinks they have, when out of nowhere, my headphones are ripped off my head and a Karen is there, and I get ready for a fight. Karen:
Excuse me, I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes.
She could have, but like I said, headphones. Me. Is there a problem, miss?
I've been looking for kitchenware everywhere, and I can't find it. And
Wait, you think I work here?
yes, you teens always have jobs in these sorts of places.
I sigh heavily again. My shortness is a burden. Me. I mean, you're not wrong about teens working here, but not only do I not work here, I'm not a teen. Now give me my headphones back. I reach for my headphones.
No, you're going to take me to get what I want. Then you get your headphones.
Me. Lady, look, I don't work here. I work at home. You can't just take something that doesn't belong to you if you want. I suggest looking for someone wearing the uniform, though. I doubt they'd help you because of how rude you are.
How dare you speak?
How dare you think it's okay to invade my personal space? How dare you think it's okay to take my property? And how dare you assume people will do as you say that might work for kids, but not a 24-year-old man who just came out for the first time in a week after dealing with a family pet dying. That last one wasn't necessary, but I was so mad that my trip out was ruined that it slipped out. R.I.P. to my cat, 11 years of fun. I snatched my headphones back, leaving her speechless. Me. Go look for someone wearing red and orange. That's what the staff wear here. And with that, I grabbed my things and left. As a staff member turned the corner, I told her to turn and run back the way she came. There's a Karen back there. So this ends my story. I started laughing on my way home about how ridiculous this whole thing was. Woman assumes I was helping a customer, but I was helping my mom. I was making some homemade sheet candy, and before I started cooking, I noticed that I was out of cooking spray. So my mom and I head for the nearest grocery store. The employees at the store, which I worked at for a short time, wear a blue apron with the store name on the front. I was wearing a black apron covered in powdered sugar from the last batch I had made a couple of weeks prior. I had forgotten to take the apron off before heading out. While we were there, we decided to pick up a few extra things instead of just the cooking spray. My mom can't bend over due to having had a knee replacement surgery a while back, so I was helping her out by grabbing items off the lower shelf. My mom shuffled forwards a bit when I hear it. Ahem. I turned around and faced a woman with a typical Karen haircut. I couldn't really see much of her face, but her mask definitely screamed to me, "I demand attention," with how brightly colored it was. But it was the eyes. She was glaring at me for some reason, and I couldn't figure out quite why. "Oh, sorry. Am I in your way?" This has not been the first time I've been confronted by someone for being in the way while looking for something or waiting for my mom to move forward.
You should be helping other customers.
Uh-oh. I knew what this was the second she said that. There was no way she could recognize me as a former employee since I wasn't wearing my work wig and was only wearing a black bandana. "I don't work here, ma'am." I stood up from my crouched position and straightened my apron since it had gotten up on my back a bit.
Yes, you do. You're wearing an apron and helping that jerk get her groceries.
That woman is my mother, and I don't work here. Maybe instead of being what you called my mom, you should think before you speak. I went to turn and walk away from her when she screeched at me.
Get me your manager.
You want me to get you my manager? Okay. I have a bit of a temper when people insult my family, but insulting my mom directly had majorly put me in a bad mood. What you may not know is that I'm the kind of person who becomes quite the smarty when confronted angrily. So I went and got my manager, my mother. "Here's your manager. This woman has managed me for 24 years. Why don't you tell her what your complaint is?" My mom looked so confused, but the Karen just huffed and stormed out of the aisle. I thought that would be the end of it. We continued shopping when that same bright beacon of a mask came wheeling around the corner with a real employee in tow.
That's her. That's the employee that refused to help me.
Me. "Mom, you need my help in here?" "Nope, I'm good. Meet you back at the car." The Karen stomped over to me, pointing and screeching at me and the employee. She was demanding I be fired for refusing to help her and instead favoring another customer. I just stared at her, scratched my nose through my mask, and waited for her to stop shrieking before I pointed at my apron. "Black, not blue, lady. I don't work here. I was shopping with my mom. Leave me alone." The employee looked so confused, only managing out a weak, "She doesn't work here." The second that Karen started yelling at the employee, I just booked it out of there. I feel bad for leaving the guy with that crazy lady, but I wasn't about to deal with her crap or risk completely snapping and doing something crazy after she had insulted my mother. I must have a retail face or something, or rather retail eyes, with all of us having to wear masks. But really, lady? Insulting a customer and demanding a person wearing a sugar-covered apron to help you? I ain't no sugary sweet maid that bends to your every will. Speaking of sugary sweets, what's your favorite kind of candy of all time? Please let us know.
Take 5 for the win, bruh.
My pregnant ex, Karen, demands money from me. My ex, 25 female, and I, 27 male, were together about 6 months, but during that time, we were free to see other people. Things weren't working out, so we broke up. Over a month after that, she finds out she's pregnant and tells me the baby is mine. But I already knew she was seeing other guys, so it was also possible the baby isn't. She got mad that I was having my doubts, but I said if we got a paternity test and it showed I'm the dad, then yeah, I'll 100% be involved. My ex didn't want that, and she'd rather wait until after the baby is born to get a test done, so I said that's fine, it's her choice, but I won't get myself involved unless I know the baby is mine. Like I already know, I could be set up for child support if I start helping out now, and then later it's revealed I'm not the father. I live in the US and have heard this stuff happens a lot. I'd rather not even risk it, you know? She's about 8 months now, and I have started saving up money, reading up some books, making shopping cart lists of baby clothes and furniture to buy in case I am the father. So it's not like I'm not preparing for this at all. So right now, money is tight with her since I know she's only working part-time. She doesn't have the money for a baby bassinet or clothes because she practically lives paycheck to paycheck. She started asking to let her borrow money for baby stuff, but I've told her no. As far as I know, she doesn't have other family she's close to, and friends are the same as her with money. But I already said I'll start giving her money and helping out once I know her son is mine. Otherwise, I'd rather not get involved. I've even told her to reach out to the other guys who could also be the dads, but she said one is even more broke and the other she hasn't been able to contact. So for right now, seems like I'm the only one actually able to offer financial support. We have a couple mutual friends, and I'm getting crap from them because they know I have the money to help out. She could be the mom of my kid, so the least I could do is provide. They say they would if they had the money. Since I do have the means and this baby could be mine, I should already be helping. They have a point. The baby could be mine, and I'll be happy to help out once I know he is in fact mine. But everyone else is seeing it as I'm being too cold and inconsiderate. I don't think I am, but want to know what others believe. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not giving money to his pregnant ex whose baby might not even be his? Please let us know.
How about we stop making babies when we don't have the financial means to support them? Like that's ever gonna happen.
Rich entitled aunt throws a tantrum, gets shut down by her teenage son. So I'm back with another entitled aunt story. However, this time the entitled aunt is my mother's sister and not my father's sister, the subject of one of my last entitled aunt stories. My mother's sister married a wealthy man about 20-something odd years ago. I'm not sure what my uncle does for a living, but he makes enough money to classify as a millionaire. He's a pretty cool, down-to-earth person who, despite his financial status, is a very humble and generous person. My aunt, on the other hand, believes she deserves everything she wants because she's a good, God-loving person who devotes her life to God and his teachings, so she deserves to be pampered. From the sound of it, she doesn't cook, so her family does takeout every night. She doesn't clean, so they have a housekeeper, and she doesn't drive. I have no idea how my uncle has managed to stay with my aunt as long as he has. So back in 2018, my aunt, uncle, and younger cousin visited the family for Christmas. A few days after Christmas, I went to Boston with my aunt, uncle, cousin, and grandfather as their tour guide. They wanted to go to a few high-end stores around the Prudential Copley area, and I knew that area very well. After we had gone through all the high-end stores that I felt very out of place in, and my uncle dropped $1,500 on a purse for my aunt, we went to a popular cheesecake chain restaurant. The first thing I said when we sat at the table was, "I can pay for my own meal," and my uncle gave me a nonsense. What kind of tourists would we be if we didn't give our personal tour guide some form of payment? We wouldn't have found this cool place if it weren't for you. We'll pay for your meal. I ended up ordering the cheapest thing I could find, a turkey club sandwich, and decided that I would forego the cheesecake. When dessert time came, I initially passed on a piece of cheesecake, but my aunt and uncle pressured me into ordering one once I admitted I had never had a piece from that restaurant. I offered to pay for my meal again once the check came, and once again, my uncle refused to let me. This is important. Fast forward a few days. My aunt and the rest of the family got into a bit of an argument about the dinner plans for that night. I don't remember everything that was said. I was playing Mario Kart with my older cousin's kids and my younger sister when this went down. I think she wanted to go to an expensive seafood restaurant, but the kids refused to eat seafood and my older cousin's wife is allergic, so everyone else was suggesting we go elsewhere, and it led to my aunt crying about,
I've done so much for all of you this week, and you can't even do something for me. We were kind and generous to pay for everyone every time we've gone to eat. No one else has offered to pay, so we've had to foot the whole bill every time.
We basically went out to eat for breakfast and either lunch or dinner just about every day, and my aunt's demand because she claimed that her 17-year-old son
wouldn't eat home-cooked food.
He wolfed down several pieces of the traditional French-Canadian meat pie my grandmother made for Christmas. My uncle wouldn't let anyone else pay for the restaurant bills because he had more than enough money to pay for everyone, and he knew his wife's demands of going to restaurants as a family for every meal could be a financial strain on the rest of us. She cried something about the sacrifices she made in Boston, like
settling for a $1,500 purse when she wanted a $2,500 purse and foregoing the matching wallet,
which was a lie. She wanted a $1,000 purse that the store didn't have in stock, so she settled for a $1,500 purse and eventually said,
we were even nice enough to pay for OP's lunch when we went to Boston because she decided to spend $40 on a set of measuring cups and didn't have enough money left for lunch. And then she had to order a piece of cheesecake.
Yes, I'll admit, I did spend $40 on a 6-piece measuring cup set. And before I could even start to defend myself, my 17-year-old cousin went, "What are you talking about, Mom? OP offered to pay for her food like 4 times, and Dad told her not to worry about it. She got the cheapest thing on the menu and wasn't even going to get a piece of cheesecake, but you and Dad forced her to. Not to mention, Uncle, my dad, has offered to pay for his family's meals every time we've gone out, but Dad never let him. Dad doesn't mind paying for everyone, so I don't know why you do." My aunt quieted down after that and reluctantly agreed to go somewhere else for dinner. I don't have many stories about her because she lives in a different part of the country, and I will go months, if not years, without talking to the rest of the family for no reason, so I rarely interact with her. Speaking of purses, how much is too much for a purse? Please let us know.
Depends on who you're asking, buddy boy.
Entitled mom demands a free cake on her kid's birthday, gets banned from the store. Okay, so this was a story that happened a year ago, right around when lockdown started. Here's the cast. We've got me. We've got Kay. I'm not going with Karen. My aunt and an old friend of mine are called Karen, and they are the nicest people you could know. I was gonna go with Catherine, but I met a pretty cool Catherine, so I edited to Kay. We've got manager, we've got sweet kiddo, and we've got my awesome dad. I will also mention a cashier, but he doesn't really have a big part in this story. He never even said anything really. So on March 8th, 2020, my dad and I were waiting in line at a store, and I had a mini chocolate cake with me, along with some candles and sprinkles. I hadn't celebrated my birthday in 2 years, and this would make year 3 as my whole family canceled on me due to lockdown, which I get. But since I hadn't had a good birthday celebration in some time, my dad decided it would be a let's eat cake and watch movies tonight kind of birthday. I had put my cake on the conveyor belt along with my other items before putting my headphones in while I wait in the line with my dad. I was halfway to jamming out my music when I feel a tap on my shoulder. I look at behind me only to see a woman looking at me before smiling. She wasn't wearing a mask at this time because they weren't required, but my dad and I still were, as it's better to be safe than sorry. I take out my headphones and just stare at her. She had shoulder-length, dirty blonde hair, a pink shirt that barely reaches her belly button, and a pair of high shorts. Where I live, it's always sunny, so those outfits are pretty normal. She was maybe 34 or 35 from the looks of it. She had a kid with her, maybe 10. He also wasn't wearing a mask, but he was a pretty sweet kid. He was actually really quiet and not entitled like his mother. Me. Hello, ma'am, I said, kinda nervous. I've suffered with anxiety for a while, so talking to people I don't know can get me nervous. Kay.
Hey, kid, can I ask you where you got that?
She says, looking in the direction of the conveyor belt. Me. Got what? I look in that direction.
That,
she says, pointing at my cake. Oh, you mean my cake? I got that in the back of the store, where all the other baked goods are. Kay doesn't say anything. Me. I hope that helps, ma'am. Without even a thank you, the woman ran off, leaving her kid at their cart, right behind me. He just looked at me and smiled. I like your purple hair, miss. I remember just seeing my little brother and smiling to myself before responding, I like your car's t-shirt. It's pretty cool. After that, my dad and I had shared a glance about what the woman did, and I just shrugged. About 3 minutes later, my dad and I make it to the front of the line, and my dad realizes he left his wallet in his car. Since we were parked close to the store, the cashier let my dad run out to the car to get his wallet. Right after he left, I hear a scream. I and everyone else turn their head to see the woman I had talked to earlier.
Kay, this brat stole my cake,
she yells, pointing at me. Me. What? No,
Yes, you did, you little brat.
She didn't even let me finish my sentence.
You stole my cake. Then you were very rude to me when I asked for it back.
Manager walks around the conveyor belt and stands next to the cashier and looks at me. Is this true, miss? Did you take her cake? No, I didn't. Today is my birthday, and my dad and I were just getting me a small cake. Kay, who is now back in line with her kid.
That's not true. I told you it was my kid's birthday, and you just got mad at me and took my cake.
Me, close to tears at this point. Ma'am, stop lying, please. I already told you that this was my cake. As the woman started to yell at me, the manager, and even the cashier about how I was lying, I heard someone walk behind me. I could see it was my dad. I remember hugging him tightly before he put his hand on my shoulders and asked me what happened. I just pointed to the yelling woman, and he nodded before getting in front of me and looking at the woman. Awesome dad. May I ask why you are screaming at my daughter?
She stole my kid's birthday cake. Now get out of the way and let me talk to the little jerk.
Dad. Ma'am, let me ask you this. If this is your cake, why do my daughter and I have the candles and sprinkles while you only have a magazine, a bag of chips, and a soda on your part of the conveyor belt? While this logic didn't make the best sense, the woman went quiet. Manager. He looks at my dad and me and goes to talk when we all hear a little voice. Sweet kid. That's her cake, he says with a smile. All of us look at him, and honestly, I thought that he was saying it was his mother's cake. Manager. Whose cake is it, kiddo? The manager asks, looking down at the 10-year-old. Sweet kid. The girl with the purple hair. He pointed at me before going to the conveyor belt. He stood as tall as he could before pushing the cake towards me and my dad. Kay.
What?
Dad. Also, if you don't believe me, my daughter or the kid, there are cameras all around the store. If the woman was quiet before, she was extra quiet now, and her face was turning white. We paid for the cake, candles, and sprinkles. Then on the way out of the store, I could hear the woman yelling about how she wanted a free cake for all of the BS she had to deal with today because of
that entitled brat and her father.
My dad and I just laughed and left the store. Before we left, I turned around and see the small kid waving at me as his mother kept yelling louder and louder. I waved back at him as my dad and I left. Around a month later, my dad and I had come back, masked up and hand sanitized again, just coming for groceries. I met up with a worker who was a friend I knew in high school. We started talking and the lady came up. They looked at me and laughed. Wait, that entitled brat was you? I just nodded and looked at them, curious as to why they were laughing. Through laughs, my friend says how the woman knocked down the magazines and lollipop stands by the cash register, along with yelling at the manager and the cashier. She ended up getting a temporary ban from the store. I had also found out that my dad and I got the last mini cake that day. We both had a laugh, then I had to say goodbye and I caught up with my dad so we could leave the store soon. To be honest, I just remembered this story because it's almost March 8th again. My birthday is coming up. I wonder if I'll see the kid or the mother when I get a mini cake again. God, I hope not. Speaking of cake, what's your favorite kind of cake of all time? Please let us know in the comments below.
I'm a huge fan of ice cream cake.
Am I the jerk for using the money I saved to get my stepson a prosthetic leg instead of contributing towards my brother's wedding? I, male 33, have a younger brother, male 25, who's the family's golden child. Once he was born, he had 3 parents, mom, dad, and me. I was required to drop everything anytime to look after him. I shared 65% of his care in the first few years of his life. Then as he grew older, my parents expected me to provide for him financially. He fell sick and I ended up paying for his medical expenses, driving him places, going to the doctors, follow-ups with him. I did all of that while all my other social relationships fell apart. No more friends calling nor seeing me. I had trouble committing to a serious relationship because I didn't give it my all. Once I met my fiance, I kept my distance and focused on her and my stepson. My mom called to ask why I'm no longer doing things for my brother. They made comments that my fiance stole me to get me to raise her son. He's 13, uses crutches because his left leg is amputated. We do everything together. I love him so much and I can't wait to adopt him, and my fiance is happy with it. I only visit family on big occasions since my aunt is kind and treats my fiance well. My brother is getting married on March, and I heard the family was putting money together to pay for the wedding. My dad called me to ask me to contribute with $15,000, which was a lot. I have other responsibilities. I'm a dad now and need to focus on my son's needs. After talking, I agreed to pay $10,000. Then my aunt called to let me know no one else paid a dime and it was just me who contributed, and it was a lie for my parents to get me back on track because my brother is and should always be my priority. I went to talk to them. Then I blew up after mom started talking about how my fiance was clearly using me to provide for her son. I argued with her, told her I won't be contributing anything towards the wedding and will use the money to get my stepson a prosthetic leg since he is my priority now. My fiance couldn't believe when I told her. They were shocked, and my uncle berated me for doing this and called me nuts because my fiance isn't even married to me yet, so she and her son weren't yet family. I argued with them, then I left. I noticed more relatives started berating me, saying I ruined it for my brother. He'll resent me, and I was being selfish and stupid to do that. They asked me to take my rose-colored glasses off and realize that family remains, but relationships like that, meaning fiancé, that are based on greed don't last, and I'll admit they were right. I don't regret what I've done for my brother. He needed me, and I have always been supportive of him. But this wedding isn't really for him, but my parents' image, and trying to show it off to everyone. I'm sure my brother prefers a simple celebration, but they control everything. No, it's not a cultural thing, but more about looking good to outsiders. I know I wasn't clear about why my family thinks my fiance was with me because of money. It's because of my appearance. I have a burn scar that covers the side of my face and goes down my neck because of an accident I had 3 years ago. It doesn't bother me. I feel confident enough to socialize, and it's never been an issue. But my family keeps bringing it up like they're shocked my fiance isn't bothered by that. I wanted to mention this, but I hesitated because I wasn't sure what people were going to think. I'm sorry. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his parents? Please let us know.
When you have parents like that in your life, the best thing you can do is cut them off.
Ma'am, I'm a soldier, not a plumber. This is my first post, so please be nice. Background. Title says it. I'm a soldier in the German Navy. Our uniform is straight dark blue. Most of the plumbers working in Germany also have blue working clothes. It was in the winter of 2019, around December, so I was also wearing my blue Navy jacket due to coldness. After 2 weeks spending on sea, I was glad to head home by train. I didn't change my uniform to civilian clothes because as a German soldier, you can use the train for free if you wear your uniform. At a station, I had to wait at about an hour for the next train to arrive, so I thought I'd use the bathroom. Oh God, if I had known. We've got me, we've got Karen, we've got police officers 1 and 2, and we've got the employee who sells tickets. Let's go. Karen.
The bathroom is flooded. You have to fix it.
Me. Excuse me, ma'am?
Fix it.
Me. I think you've mistaken me. I'm not working here.
Yes, you do. You have working clothes on. So go and fix it. Otherwise, I'll report you.
Me. Ma'am, I'm a soldier, not a plumber. Look at my jacket. Here it stands. I point to my jacket where it says German Navy. She starts to rage.
You lazy jerk. Go and do your work. I pay taxes for your money.
Me. That's right, but you've mistaken me. I pull out my military ID. This is my military ID. Look, I am a soldier. She yelled at me really loud, like I didn't know women are able to do that, to be honest. At this point, a station employee caught attention. Employee. Is there a problem? Karen.
Yes, the bathroom is flooded, and he,
she grabs me on my jacket,
refuses to do his work he's supposed to do.
Me. Ma'am, I'm afraid to say it again, but I'm not a plumber. Soldier for German Navy. This is what I am. And do not touch me again. I get rid of her grab. Employee. Yeah, it's a uniform from the Navy. Suddenly, she started to scream and throw herself to the ground.
Ah! He slapped me in the face.
She still screams, and the police caught attention. Officer. Ma'am, what happened?
He slapped me in the face.
Employee. It's not true. He didn't.
Yes, he did. You are covering for your coworker, you liar.
Employee. I'm not his coworker. Me. I really didn't. She grabbed my jacket and I just got her to lose her grab. Then she started screaming. At this point, she discussed with the police officer and I showed my ID to the other officer. Officer, ma'am, he's right. He's not a plumber, he's a soldier. And also, our offices have evidence that he didn't slap you at all. It's on camera. I think we should have a closer talk in the office. Officer 2, sorry sir for all that trouble. Have a safe travel. Me, thank you. The officer took her to the office and I've never heard from her again, gladly. The employee and I just laugh our butts off. He got me a coffee and we chatted a bit until I jumped on my train. Oh boy, what a Karen. Sorry for my bad English. Am I the jerk for telling my coworkers why I quit? I, 21 female, started working at a coffee shop about 2 months ago. I loved it when I first started. It was hard work, but enjoyable, and I made good tips. I liked my coworkers and the owners as well. For context, the owners are a young couple. The owner I am referencing in this is the wife. Let's call her V. Yesterday, when I was working my shift, I saw some things that make me wildly uncomfortable. To start, the manager that works there, I'll be calling her M, does all of the duties of a manager, but is not technically one. I found out that she's being paid $9 an hour, which is less than half of what Starbucks managers make. This is a family-owned shop in a wealthy part of town. It's criminal how they pay her. It's also important to note that the shop is severely understaffed. Before I quit, there were 3 employees, plus the owners, who both have jobs. I was expected to work and close alone. I got off training less than a month ago, on Friday and Saturday nights, which are the busiest nights of the week. It's also a bakery, so it still gets business at night. At this point, I think they are understaffing to make a profit. Anyways, aside from the pay thing, yesterday while I was on shift, I witnessed V yelling at M about completely mundane things. It was extremely inappropriate and degrading. The way she talked to M made it seem like she was a child, not the grown woman who keeps the shop from falling apart. It made me so uncomfortable to see the owners treating the most valuable worker they have with such little respect and regard for decency. I have a no-tolerance policy for things like this in the workplace. Additionally, the owners tried to implement an illegal practice that requires employees to pay drawer shortages. It's illegal in my state to do so unless written consent is given, and only if the deduction doesn't make the worker go below minimum wage. This wasn't an issue until my drawer came up short $7 Friday night. They tried to make me pay it even though everyone else had worked that day. I just had the responsibility of counting the drawer. They ended up dropping the whole thing after I told them I would call the workforce commission in my state and report them for illegally deducting my wages. I know it's only $7, but it isn't about the money. It's about the legality and the lack of respect in all regards. Anyways, I quit this morning. I decided it would be appropriate to tell my friend who recently got hired but hadn't started yet what happened, as well as the high school age girl I worked with there. I thought it would be important for them to know about the treatment going on. I'm afraid I might be the jerk because I think what I did was right, but it also might not have been my place to contact my coworkers and tell them what happened. If they quit, the place will go under, which I don't feel that bad about because it's the owner's fault they treat staff so badly. But I still do feel a little guilty. Am I the jerk for potentially causing a shop to close down and for contacting my coworkers? Update. Thank you for all of the kind words. After I quit, I felt more confident about the situation, as she tried to start gaslighting me about not understanding reality. She also said several times it was sad I was quitting over a cash shortage. I made sure to correct her and tell her it was her behavior that made me quit. Update. A lot of comments are suggesting I make the report anyways. I really want to do this. The only issue is they will obviously know it was me, and I'm afraid of retaliation of some kind. They know where I live because they had to come pick up the key to the store. The owners locked themselves out from my apartment at one point, which weirded me out, but that's another issue. I know it's unlikely that anything would happen, but I am nervous nonetheless and not sure exactly what would be best. I made sure to text the current workers the laws and explain to them why it's illegal, so I'm hoping they will be able to stand their ground. Have you ever had a boss that treated you horribly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I think we need some pro-revenge against this boss.
Am I the jerk for saying to my mother-in-law that she needs to get over the idea we would ever move to Ohio? My wife and I met in Boulder for school. Housing costs are crazy. Actually being able to afford to buy is out of the question for us for a bit. But we are renting a pretty nice place and are happy for now. We spend the week working jobs we don't hate, then go hiking, biking, skiing, and camping. Mother-in-law hates that my wife moved out here and hates it even more that nothing she says or does convinces us to move back to being closer to family. To be blunt, there's nothing that could convince me to move to a place like Ohio and leave everything worth living for behind just to be near family. Last week it came to a head when we were on Zoom. I said that we were going to go on a snowshoe adventure in the mountains and stay in a friend's cabin for a few nights. I've been looking forward to it for weeks. She said,
Well, I wanted to let you guys know there's a house up for sale nearby that I thought you'd really like.
She rambled on and on about all the features of the house, including its great location, and mentioned how they would even help us with the down payment. At that point, I was just fed up because nothing can get through to this woman. I said, Marlene, there is nothing you can do or say that would ever get us to move to Ohio. You need to get the fantasy out of your head. It's never going to happen. She said I was being rude, and she was just trying to help us, and repeated that they would even help us with a down payment, and it would help us settle down, finally, and be closer to family. I told her that was manipulative, and joked that if they want to be closer to us so badly, why don't they move out here? And just stepped away to let my wife wrap up the call. 10 minutes later, my wife came by and was laughing and said that her mom is angry because,
What's wrong with Ohio? I raised you here, and now you're too good for it?
Before I get told I'm pretentious or whatever, I'm sure that Ohio is perfectly fine for the people who live there. But why would we trade our lifestyle and everything we love? Why own a house in a place we don't want to be? We both had a laugh about it, but mother-in-law wouldn't let it go and insisted on sharing with everyone how awful and mean her son-in-law is because we won't move to Ohio. People were laying on the guilt trip, saying how they'd be so heartbroken if their kids left and they'd feel like failures. A lot of what's wrong with Ohio and things like that. And of course, a lot of talk of kids these days want to live in the big city and have it all and then complain that they can't afford to buy a house. I chimed in with, the offer still stands. If you want to be closer to family, you can always move here. I got angry reacts and told her that I was being a jerk. Was I? By the way, guys, Michigan isn't exactly a step up. Guys, this is a joke based on your comments relating to college sports. Please calm down. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mother-in-law? Please let us know.
If he doesn't want it, maybe we can take up her offer. It's not every day someone offers to make a down payment on your house.
Am I the jerk for refusing to take my stepsister along on a family trip that my fiance is paying for? When I was 11, my mom married my stepdad, who also had a 13-year-old daughter. For the purpose of this post, we'll call her Emma. Me and Emma have never gotten along. When I was 22, I finally went no contact with her. The straw that finally broke the camel's back was when she gleefully announced she was pregnant with my then fiance on Christmas Day. That was honestly one of the worst times in my life, and it took me a really long time to recover from the betrayal. Emma ended up marrying my ex, and they have a son together. I'm currently 28 and engaged to a wonderful man who is a lot better than my ex ever was. Emma and my ex ended up divorcing after 3 years, and she now lives with my mom and stepdad. My fiance has family in Italy who he'd like me and my parents to meet before the wedding. The original plan was to go this summer, but obviously with everything going on right now, our plans got put on hold. I was discussing the plans to reschedule for next year with my mom recently, and she asked me if I was going to invite Emma and her son along. I told her I wasn't, and she asked me to reconsider because she didn't think my stepdad would come otherwise. That's fine with me. It's really just my mom and dad that my fiance wants to introduce to his family. She argued Emma has matured since becoming a mom and getting divorced, and that she wants to attempt to have a relationship with me. When I told her I wasn't interested, she said I was putting her in an awkward position, and that I was taking my half-sister and stepbrother on my dad's side, so she felt like I was favoring him. My stepbrother is literally the one who introduced me to my fiance, and my half-sister and I are close. She also said it's unfair because Emma could never afford a trip like this on her own, and my nephew would be the one to miss out on bonding time with his cousins. She asked me to reconsider before she left, and she has only replied to my texts to ask if I had changed my mind. I'm starting to feel guilty because I know mine and Emma's dislike for one another has put a massive strain on my mom's marriage, and it's not fair to her. My mom's sisters also have called me to ask me to change my mind. I'm starting to worry my mom might not come either with how cold she's being. My full sister has also reached out and told me Emma had been going to therapy and has realized what she did was horrible and that I should consider forgiving her because she was going through a lot of her own issues, depression, low self-esteem at the time, and that my ex also made her suffer a lot too. Realistically, if she came on the trip, I could just avoid her the entire time, but I also don't know if she has changed or if she'll start up her old tricks again. My fiance is also the one paying for the trip, and I selfishly don't want him to pay for her. Am I the jerk?
Entitled mom thinks the food is taking too long, so makes us throw it out. Comes back 5 minutes later because she changed her mind. I'd been working in an ice cream shop each summer for 6 summers when this had happened. It was my 4th year. It was the beginning of the season, and I was also training a new employee, and because the store was small, we're usually only there with 1 or 2 people. On this day, it was very busy, and most people were fine waiting as we did our best to help people as fast as possible. Entitled mom just thought we still weren't fast enough. Cast: we've got entitled mom, we've got coworker, we've got nice customer. Entitled mom tells coworker, "Excuse me, but I was next, not this person here."
Coworker: I'm sorry, I'll be with you in a minute. Nice customer: you actually just walked in. There are more people waiting. At this time, I was already looking at entitled mom like she could be trouble, so I kept an eye on her and coworker while she was ordering. Entitled mom:
"I would like 2 scoops of Smurf and strawberry and a waffle."
Coworker: okay, that'll be $5.20. It'll take a minute to prepare the waffle. At this point, entitled mom paid and started waiting patiently for about 20 seconds before crap hit the fan. Entitled mom:
"I've been waiting forever for my waffle. What's going on here?"
Coworker: like I said, it'll take a minute for it to be ready. It'll be done shortly. Me: coworker, I'll take this, just help the rest. Miss, like coworker told you, it takes a few minutes to get ready, but it's almost done.
"You can't make me wait this long. I have a kid on her own outside. I can't leave her this long."
Me: if you want, you can wait outside and I'll bring it out when it's done. So she goes outside with the ice cream, but comes back in immediately. Entitled mom:
"I want a refund for the waffle because it's taking too long and my kid is alone outside."
Me: okay, but it's done now, so you could still take it.
"No, I don't want it anymore. I want my money back."
Well, here it is, and have a nice day.
"You should treat the customers with more respect."
Me: well, if you don't want anything, you should go because we have more customers waiting. Entitled mom leaves, and I go back to helping customers and giving coworker pointers again, when 5 minutes later, entitled mom walks back in. We also had to throw the waffle out because if you reheat it, it just tastes nasty and we can't sell it to anyone. Entitled mom:
"I changed my mind. I still want the waffle, but make it fast because my kid is outside."
Me: okay, that'll be $2.50, and it takes a minute to be ready.
"You can't make me wait. What about the one you made earlier? I don't have time to wait for the food."
Me: we had to throw it out because you didn't want it, so I have to make a new one now. Also, you can just wait outside and I'll bring it out to you.
"Okay, but I want the number of your boss and your names so I can complain about you."
Me: sure, I'll write it down for you. I gave her the number of the store itself and my first name and the waffle, and she went away. I never heard about it again from my boss, so I think it never came through. The other customers were pretty nice, saying we did a good job, which my coworker needed because entitled mom was pretty mean to us and she was still pretty insecure because she had just started. Speaking of ice cream, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Please let us know.
All of the above.
Working at the happiest place on earth. Many moons ago, in the year of 2009, I was blessed with the slave labor experience that is referred to as the college program at the happiest place on earth. Here, they paid you minimum wage, but provided housing for $90 a week that is taken out of your paycheck while working for them. As you can guess, here all the entitled parents come together to torment employees since they pay exuberant amounts of money to go to said theme park. Since it's multiple stories, just know Karen/Dave will be my names for these people. I figured I'd share some of my favorite experiences. 1. Being called a jerk on Christmas. For some unknown reason, people think going to this theme park on Christmas is a great idea. Like a lot of people. This is probably the last place I'd want to be since the crowds are intense. I worked at a ride that had a height requirement, so parents of short kids loved to complain. On this particular day, I was working loading, so I saw a girl who I needed to measure. Like, we measure multiple times. Me: alright, I just need to measure her. Dave: no, they measured her outside. She's fine. Me: even so, it's my job. We just have to measure her again. Dave: but they already measured her. Me: we just need to do it again. The girl stands under the ruler and is just touching the bar. Perfect, you're good. Dave: you're a jerk. Me: My actual reaction. But I said she's good. It's Christmas. 2. Parents attempt to force terrified kids on ride by yelling at them. So, if you're at a theme park and you attempt to force your terrified kid on a ride by screaming at them and pointing out that you've spent money to bring them there, yeah, no. Happy story. Same idea, less angry parents. I'm pretty good with kids, so I know how to talk to them. There was this father and daughter who came in while the park was dead. She was really scared, so I asked her what she was afraid of. She thought the log would somehow flip while going down the hill. I show her how it literally can't do that since it's on a track, and showed her how the edge of the log is being held so it can't flip. This eases her and she agrees to go on. 9 minutes or so later, her log comes back and it's still dead. The dad noticed this and we let them go around again and again. She loved it. Unfortunately, I tried the same method with parents screaming at their kids, but the parents just kept interrupting me. 3. No, you can't cut the line by hopping in FastPass. No, I know the last person you saw did not take your FastPass. So I'm working the interior FastPass line when a man and his kid show up and try to tell me this convoluted story about how the last person they passed took their tickets. Also, his son was definitely too short. I remember this guy arguing with me for like 5 minutes while I'm trying to do my job. I send him down to go walk across the stairs and he tries going to the next employee and doing the same thing. I'm sitting there like, nope, over and out. 4. No, I'm not letting you in the FastPass line. You would be amazed by the people who don't have fast passes and come up with the worst stories to try and get in. Karen.
We need to get on the ride now. Our plane leaves in 45 minutes, so we have to ride this ride right now.
Me. You should probably catch your flight then. 5. I work for OSHA. There's no reason my kid can't ride this ride. This happened. I was actually not the person who dealt with the brunt of this, but assisted my coworker because, what the heck, dude? Chill out. This Dave stood at the front entrance of the ride making a fuss and comparing any kid he saw coming out from under the bridge to his kid. Under the bridge. Yes, the exit is back there, but also a bathroom, play area, store, etc. 7. No, you can't go on the ride in the middle of a massive thunderstorm. During bad storms, they would shut down outdoor rides. Something cool to know is all over the theme park, there are lightning rods everywhere to make sure if lightning hits, it'll hit one of those instead. I was stationed at the entrance wearing a wonderfully uncomfortable poncho, informing people that they could not go on the rides right now. We evacuated the ride, so there were no more guests in line. Dave.
We came all the way from Australia to ride this ride.
Me. You can ride it when there isn't a storm happening. You just can't ride this now.
But it's a water ride. We're going to get wet anyway.
Me. Yes, and water conducts electricity, so it's not safe. Literally, at this moment, a lightning strikes the top of the entrance, lightning rod, to the ride across the way. I remember seeing red, then white, and hearing a massive boom. I'm a short girl. My literal reaction was to dive behind the trash can next to me. Dave.
Okay, we'll come back later.
I have tons of stories from there, and I think I've posted a lot of them years ago, though felt like sharing a few. Speaking of Disneyland, have you ever been to Disneyland? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
Universal Studios for the win, bruh.
Am I the jerk for making my husband get off his video game to take care of the baby? Our 9-month-old is teething and pretty fussy right now. I finally got her to sleep. I nurse her to sleep, so my husband couldn't help with that. He was playing an online game with voice, and I told him he needed to be more quiet because if he woke her up, he was taking care of her until she was ready to go back to sleep. If she wakes up, she wants to play for an hour or two before she'll settle back down. He said he wasn't being that loud, and to be fair, he was using a normal speaking voice, but I told him that she kept stirring and squirming. My rocking chair is in the living room where he has his PC. When she's fussy like this, she just needs to rock and cuddle for a while. If I put her down too early, she wakes up. He said he'd try to be quieter. He was using his headset, and it's pretty high-end, so it can easily pick up his voice. There wasn't an issue with him being heard in-game, but he kept forgetting to lower his voice, and the baby woke up. I waited for him to finish his mission, then I handed her to him and went into the bathroom with my laptop to play one of my games. He's mad and says I'm being a jerk because he wasn't being overly loud, and he wanted to get further in the game. But I warned him, when she's having a fussy night, we have to work around her. So, am I the jerk? Update. Baby got sleepy again. I nursed and rocked her, and she's out. Husband apologized for getting upset, and we got to play one of the games we play together. Honestly, I think we're all just a little fed up from being stuck in this tiny apartment. None of us can even breathe without being in someone else's space. We were supposed to move to a bigger place before the baby was born, but lockdown happened. The people who were supposed to move out couldn't, so we couldn't move in. We couldn't find another place fast enough, so we were forced to sign another lease here. Just a few more months. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
I'm glad my parents weren't gamers. Actually, I think they did have an Atari at one point.
This isn't 1695. My kids attended a private school in Delaware. As a part of their 5th grade curriculum, they all visit Colonial Williamsburg. They've been doing this for many years. The school is pre-kindergarten to 12th grade, so a lot of families, like ours, have kids in several different grades, and they all talk about the trip to Williamsburg. It's a week they all look forward to, and they all have heard stories from the older kids about their trips. It is also the first extended 4-day overnight trip. Many parents are still reluctant to send their kids off on an overnight trip, so the 5th grade teaching team holds a lottery and selects several parents to go with the kids. The parents keep track of the kids during tours and meals, and they have their own and usually 2 other students in a room. It can be pretty competitive to get a parent spot. When my daughter was in 5th grade, I chaperoned a lot. A few years later, my husband went with my son. Here's the catch. The school totally buys into the idea of an immersive colonial experience. The kids all wear colonial outfits that week. They eat at a tavern and get enlisted in the militia. They even have a colonial dance one night. So some of the girls have more than one outfit. Sometimes parents borrow colonial clothes from families with older kids. Sometimes they are bought. A lot of them are made by the parents. They also have a collection of clothes in a colonial closet that kids are able to borrow from. Often, parents donate the clothes from their kids after the last one goes. Here's the kicker. Parents are also supposed to dress up in colonial outfits. So I made outfits for my daughter and myself. It was way more work than I thought it would be. They turned out great. Obviously, a few years later, when it was my son's turn, he could not wear the dresses. My husband also was chosen to chaperone. No way was I making full colonial outfits for the boys. So we called Opera Delaware and were able to borrow colonial clothes for both my husband and my son. One of the neat things about Colonial Williamsburg is that the historic interpreters that give tours and operate the businesses are in period dress and act as if they were living during the colonial era. One day, the kids were eating lunch in one of the taverns. My husband, who is an attorney, needed to check his email and messages. So while the kids were eating, he ran outside to try and get better phone reception. He was dressed in full-on colonial clothes. An older lady, we will call her Karen, came stomping up to him. Karen:
What are you doing?
Husband doesn't say anything. Karen:
You're supposed to be in character. You shouldn't have that phone out. There were no phones during colonial times.
Husband realizes he is in colonial clothes and the kids weren't anywhere to be found. Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm just a chaperone. That left Karen very confused. I mean, why would a grown man visit Williamsburg dressed in period clothing? Karen:
Well, still, you shouldn't be out here on a phone. People won't know.
That was the last time my husband chaperoned a school trip. Am I the jerk for bringing outside food to the restaurant? This took place a few years ago, but it had longer consequences. My then 4-year-old daughter had, and still has, major sensory issues, especially with food. At the time, she only had 3 safe foods that she would eat, and we had just gotten her into therapy for her sensory/eating after a couple of years of being brushed off by doctors. My grandparents were celebrating their golden anniversary at a restaurant, and the whole family was coming. At the time, we only left our daughter with family, and since mine would be at the party and my husband's were very busy, we had to bring her. The issue was, the restaurant had none of her safe foods. The party would be pretty long, and she'd get to see cousins her own age. So we made the choice to bring one of my daughter's safe foods. Myself and brother were paying about $500 for this dinner. Grandparents picked the venue, not including the alcohol, so I figured one dish wouldn't be a huge deal. Party came. It was time to eat, and I gave our orders to the waiter. When the food came, I waited for him to leave and took out my daughter's meal from her bag, ham and cheese sandwich with a side of berries. No one said anything until the waiter came back to check on us and saw it. He said there was no outside food. I pulled him aside and explained the situation. I didn't want to be that person, but I did ask for a manager, explaining to her that the waiter did zero wrong, but asking for an exception given how much we were spending and given my daughter couldn't eat anything off the menu. She agreed and left, but my family was embarrassed. They claimed it ruined the party. Now my daughter is 7 and is a lot better with her sensory issues. She's still what an outsider would consider a picky eater, but she can eat so much more now and can eat at a restaurant no problem. but my family won't invite us when they go out to dinner, even seeing how well my daughter eats at parties/family events at people's houses. They say I'll ruin it by bringing outside food even when I say I won't. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for bringing outside food to the restaurant for her daughter or not? Please let us know. The time I made someone question their sanity. My boss at Good Thrift asked me to help out our sister store for a few hours one day. Hours are hard to get at Good Thrift, and I need money for college classes, so I tell him, sure, I can go. My job is to stand by the door and make sure people have masks on. I clock in, meet the manager, Susan, and that's about it. I'm not introduced to any of the other workers, and my shift is so short, it's not like I need to make friends. I'm there literally for 3 hours and then told I can go home. During my short time as door guard, a woman, Crazy, comes into the store not wearing a mask. I tell her, I'm sorry ma'am, but you need to be wearing a mask. Crazy looks at me, tries to get closer, and spits out, I will not. I tell her that unless she wears one, she needs to leave. That makes her go crazy. She starts telling me that she doesn't have it. She knows because she was just tested 2 months ago. She will not wear it because it isn't her job to keep other people safe. I get on my radio and call Susan to the front. The moment Susan shows up, Karen tells her how rude I was and how she doesn't need to wear one. Susan tells her, I'm sorry, but it's policy. We can be shut down if we don't comply with the health code rules.
Why didn't you tell me that?
Karen demands. She puts on a mask, goes into the shop, and Susan tells me to call her if Karen utters another word about the mask. In 3 hours, I had 4 people insist their exemptions to logic. When Susan would appear, they would put it on and not utter another word. When I was finally done, Susan thanked me. She said she might need more hours if I was interested. I let her know my schedule with school was pretty busy and I didn't think I could drive 30 minutes just for a few hours. I decided to shop just to see what they had. Sister Store had a huge clothing section with a culled selection of beautiful dresses. I was looking through the dresses, my lanyard off, my black polo shirt covered by a jacket. I'm still pretty recognizable with my hair color, which attracted Crazy back over to me. Karen grabs my arm, shakes it and says,
What is the price for this?
I step to the side, still looking at the dresses. I don't work here. Karen touches my arm again, this time to jab the hanger at me. She says in a crazy tone,
Even if you are off the clock, you can tell me who to speak to about the price.
I turn to look at her, narrow my eyes and shrug. I don't work here. I'm a customer. Please leave me alone. I walk off and she follows me.
I just want to know the price.
I don't know what to tell you. Leave me alone.
I'm going to talk to the manager.
You do that. Leave me alone. Karen ends up walking away, I guess to find her brain among the racks. I get a few pairs of pants, 2 polo shirts, and a dress. When I'm checking out, Karen appears out of the mist to speak with whom she assumes are my beloved coworkers. Karen tells the girl checking me out,
She has been so rude to me. Can you get a manager?
The girl blinks. She doesn't work here. Karen begins to get upset again.
She was at the door. She just worked.
I have no idea what she's talking about. I don't work here, and I have never worked here. I don't recognize her, the poor cashier said. Eventually, Crazy demands the manager. Susan comes up, asks what the issue is, and tells the woman, oh, she doesn't work here. Crazy ends up throwing her shopping on the counter, leaving the store in a huff. Susan tells me that Karen is in here all the time causing issues and she hopes she never comes back. She then tells the cashier that I'm from another store, helped out for a few hours, and I would need the employee discount. I went home, took a shower, and hoped Karen had a meltdown. Am I the jerk if I put my son's father on child support? So, I'm a first-time mom to a wonderful boy who's 2. His father and I haven't been together since before he was born. We had a falling out and he went to jail, and that's a different story though. So in the span of 2 years, my son's father has given me $600, 2 boxes of diapers, a box of wipes, and a bag of used clothes. I've always made sure my son was taken care of. I never asked or bothered him for anything unless I genuinely needed it. I told him I wanted him to start spending time with his son. He said he would take him on weekends. Well, the weekends came and he never showed. It's happened multiple times and it's jeopardized my job. I've even reached out and told him that it was unacceptable to ignore his duties as a parent. He never once said that he didn't want to be part of the baby's life. Even if he did, then I would let that happen. Everything came to a boil this last week when I asked him for some money to buy my son more clothes. He told me he feels like I'm spending the money on other things and he no longer is going to give me anything. Instead, he's just going to buy whatever the baby needs and drop it off when he can. I told him I was offended that he would say that since I've given up so much for our son. I told him that by law, if he didn't want to pay anything, he needed to take him 50% of the time. Well, it was his turn to take the baby, and he ignored me. Went half the week without responding, and then said, "I'll give you $300 and take him on weekends. I can't during work since I don't have a sitter. Stop tripping already." I will admit I was irritated with him. I responded back that that wasn't my issue. I work as well and still manage to take care of our son. You've had all week to plan things. I'm done trying to make this work with you. I'm filing with the courts, so this way there's no more issues for us. Well, that sent him off the deep end. He started going off on me, saying I was damaging his life, and then told me he was going to quit his job so the baby wouldn't get anything. I told him to do what he felt was best, but I'm going to court. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I may have gone too far. Well, who do you agree with? Please let us know.
Be very careful who you have kids with. Be very careful.
My dad's mic drop moment. Okay, as the title says, this was not my own malicious compliance, but my dad's. I was the subject of it, however, and had a front row seat through the whole thing. Now, for the background to understand what happened. This happened almost 30 years ago, but this story is, to this day, my favorite story about my dad. I was 13 at the time, and I was in the 8th grade, and this was a Thursday on the way to lunch. Both are important later. I had ended up in a fight at school because I did something stupid without realizing it until afterwards. If people want, I can give details later, but they aren't really needed to the malicious compliance. All that needs to be known is I did not throw the first punch and tried to walk away from the fight early on. This got me jumped from behind, and it was only because of a gym teacher that I wasn't more badly hurt. After the fight was broken up, both the other kid and I had to write down our versions of what happened, as apparently so did many witnesses, both teachers and students. A nurse had looked me over, and all I had was some bruises. Then came the waiting game. Obviously, with a fight, our parents were called. In my case, my dad came. At the time, this worried me a little, because normally my mom took care of things if the school was called. Her job was much more flexible time-wise, so it just worked out better that way. Well, that day my dad came instead. I don't remember why. He got there before the other kids' parents, so we were taken to the principal's office. We both sat down, and I'm terrified. We all know that look of when a parent looks civil, but is just waiting to go nuclear. That was the look on my dad's face when he walked in. I was convinced I was done for. I don't dare say a word, convinced that will just set my dad off sooner. So I sit there as the principal runs my dad through a thorough and more accurate retelling of what happened than I was expecting. While this is going on, my dad is miraculously, at least from my point of view, calming down. I was a second family for my parents. With much older siblings, my dad felt, and still does, that there are times to fight and times to walk away. And as the principal is talking, he apparently realized I had behaved the way he wanted me to in those situations. It was to the point that when the principal finished her retelling of what happened and explained that I hadn't lied to try and make myself look better, and that my story matched up with all of the witness statements and the other boys too. My dad just looked at me and nodded. I was floored. I had no idea what was going to happen next, but if Dad wasn't mad anymore, I could roll with the rest. Sorry for the long setup. Here's the malicious compliance. It was clear on my dad's face now that he thought the school was just covering their bases, and he seemed more than willing to let them. That was until the principal stated that by school police, I was to be sent home for the rest of the day and receive a one-day suspension for the next day, Friday. This enraged my dad. She had flat out stated I had both acted in self-defense and tried to end the fight, so he demanded to know why I was being punished with a suspension and what was going to happen to the other kid. She explained that it was simply school policy and her hands were tied. My dad would tell me later that he thought she was full of it. As for the other boy, he was to be given a 10-day suspension. Now, my dad didn't argue, and I was just trying to stay out of the way and watch. So I was surprised when my dad turned to me and said, "So, what do you want on your pizza?" Pizza was, and will always be, my favorite food. I floored with no idea what to say. Apparently, this was clear on my face because my dad continued, "If they're going to give you a 3-day weekend, you might as well have a pizza and some movies to enjoy." Even as I begin to smile so big my face hurts, the principal said, "What? I'm sorry? What did you say?" My dad just as quickly replied, very matter-of-factly, "Well, from what you've told me, my son did nothing wrong and handled the situation as well as could have been expected. You may be bound by school policy to have to suspend him, but since he's behaved just as his mother and I raised him to, I see no reason for his suspension to be a punishment." I, in fact, want to encourage what I believe is appropriate behavior in my son. Now, if you'll excuse me, since he's suspended and hasn't eaten lunch, I'm going to feed my son." With that, he stood up and walked out the door, with me right behind him. I didn't even look back. Fallout. My dad did get me a pizza for lunch, and we stopped off at a movie place to rent a few movies and video games for me. He took me and my bounty home and snagged a couple of slices for himself while he talked to my mom on the phone. She agreed with him completely, so I never got in any real trouble for the fight. As for the other kid, I don't know much about what happened to him. We didn't have any classes together until our junior year, 11th grade, for anyone who doesn't know the term. First day of that year, he pulled me aside and apologized to me. He's also told me that although he kept it vague and I didn't push, that the fight had led to things improving in his home life. It was nice to know that something good had come out of it. Even to this day, I don't know the details. I know it isn't a major forget you to anyone like some acts of malicious compliance, but to me at the time it was epic, and I still find it funny today. Edit. There have been some messages and posts seeming to think I was in this fight because of bullying or I was targeted for some reason. This couldn't have been further from the truth. I respect what people in those situations have had to overcome too much to let people think it was the same for me. I'll keep this as short as possible. I was heading to lunch after an English test and thinking more about food than anything else, moving more onto autopilot than conscious decisions making. I cut between two guys that had apparently squared off to fight. There was already a crowd forming going around. Not thinking it through clearly, I cut between as I said before. This upset both of them. The one I ended up fighting spun me around, asking me what I thought I was doing. He threw the first punch, I countered, then repeated once. Then we were just standing there staring at each other. The guy he originally had a problem with was gone at this point. At this point, I realized the fight was pointless. I gained nothing from it, so I said, "This is worthless," and turned to leave. Got as far as the doors to the cafeteria when the other guy got me from behind. While I appreciate the show of support, it was misplaced in this case. There was no bullying, just me not paying attention to my surroundings. I don't care what excuses you have. It's no one's fault but your own that you smoked in a non-smoking room. After a couple checked out of their room, the head housekeeper texted me a picture of smoking evidence. I charged their card for the fee. About 15 minutes later, the girl called me in a tizzy about the charge. I explained it is a smoking fee. Girlfriend: "I didn't know it was a non-smoking room." Me: "Ma'am, there's a big no smoking decal on the door right under the room number. There's also a sign on the desk and the vanity that says it's a non-smoking room and the charge is $250. It also says on the registration card you signed that you were renting a non-smoking room and that you agreed to pay $250 if it was smoked in." Girlfriend: "Okay, but we didn't know it was a non-smoking room. We wouldn't have smoked in it if we did." Me: "Again, it's very clearly marked as a non-smoking room. So you are being charged for the room having to go out of order to air out, and for the extra effort needed to remove the smoke smell." So then like 5 minutes later, the girl comes to the window in person. She's mad about the smoking fee, but also because they were charged for another night. Me: "Yes, when housekeeping was checking rooms, they were told by the gentleman in your room that you were planning on staying another night. I called to confirm and the gentleman confirmed it." Girlfriend: "No, he didn't. I was right there." Me: "Yes, he did. I called and asked if you were planning to stay for another night. He said yes, and I said he needed to come to the desk to sign for it. He said he'd come to the desk in a few minutes, so I charged the card. Then when you checked out instead, I refunded the card. I printed out a receipt showing this. She didn't like it, but she went away. I thought that was that, until the boyfriend came up to the window in person also. Boyfriend: "Hi, I'm here about the $250 being charged to my girlfriend's card." Me: "Okay." Boyfriend: "So, how do we resolve this?" Resolve what? "How do we get the money back?" You don't. It's a smoking fee. It's what happens when you smoke in a non-smoking hotel room. We didn't know that though. I've already had this conversation with your girlfriend. It's very clearly distinguished as a non-smoking room. It was 3 in the morning. We weren't paying attention. That's not really our problem. They should have offered us a smoking room. You should have made sure you weren't in a smoking room before smoking in the room. She's under 21. You shouldn't have rented to her. Me, now baffled. I agree. I'll talk to the person who checked you in last night to make sure he doesn't do that again. I want the number for corporate. We're not owned by corporate. They can't help you with a refund. I want the number so I can make a complaint. You want to complain that you smoked in our room and that we shouldn't have rented to you? Just give me the number. It's on the receipt. I gave it to your girlfriend. I can't wait to hear how they turn this into a complaint. Am I the jerk for being upset at my significant other for being too friendly with my high school bully? Me, 26, male, and my girlfriend, 26, female, met in high school. We became really good friends. She was basically my only friend in school and decided to go to the same university so we wouldn't drift apart. When we were in university, I finally asked her out. We started dating since. To sum up my time in high school, it was an awful time. I was very lonely, introverted, and quiet, both in high and middle schools, so I was prone to getting bullied. I was mostly heavily bullied by this guy, let's call him Lewis, and his group of friends. He would poke fun at my eye condition, intentionally embarrass and make me uncomfortable in front of everyone, call me all kinds of names, and just made my life in school heck. This was majorly traumatizing because school was supposed to be a safe place for me because I was being mistreated by my crappy family at home, but he ruined any chances of it being a safe place by making every day horrible. My girlfriend was aware of the bullying situation at the time, and when we became closer friends, she always comforted me about it and sympathized with me when I vented about it. She agreed that they were cruel for no reason and I didn't deserve it at all. Told me that she hated them for hurting me like that. Fast forward to now and what the problem actually is. We were out together walking the dog, and I told her I'd jog to a nearby store real quick, pick up some cigarettes, and come back while she stayed at the park. When I was walking back, I noticed her talking to someone from a distance. She seemed to be all cheerful and laughing. They talked for a bit, and he walked away in the opposite direction. So I came up to her and asked her what's up. She nonchalantly smiles and tells me it was Lewis from high school. My heart sank, not gonna lie. I awkwardly chuckled and said, "Whoa, you were seriously that happy to talk to that guy?" She says, "Sure." I told her, "You do remember he was the person that basically made my life a living heck in high school, right?" She told me, "Yeah, I remember, but I'm sure he has changed and he seemed really sweet. Come on, don't be like that." I got pretty mad at that point and didn't say anything. She notices the awkward silence and says, "Aw, dude, come on. Do you seriously still have a grudge against him? I thought you would get over it by now." Holy cow, that really hurt. It's not that easy to get over years of trauma that sabotaged my self-esteem and confidence. It was so hurtful to hear that coming from her, especially because she was my rock during the times I was being mistreated by everyone at school and home. I don't still hate the guy and his friends after all the time that has passed or want them to suffer or whatever, but it's not easy at all to forget what they did to me. Sure, maybe they changed for the better, but seeing her talk to him so cheerfully and tell me about it made me really hurt inside. Am I the jerk for this? Update. I thought I should post a follow-up since tons of people saw the other post and are probably curious what happened. Basically, everything was kind of tense between us after we went home yesterday. When I woke up the next morning, my girlfriend told me we needed to talk, and I agreed. I was going to ask her first, but she beat me to it. She asked me if I was still upset about yesterday, so I told her that I was and explained that hearing that he's a sweet guy from her was really painful, especially when she knew about the stuff he did to me. I told her that being friendly like that towards people who tormented me wasn't something I accept, and obviously explained that her "get over it" comment was out of pocket and unnecessary. I told her how much him becoming a better person was kind of irrelevant to me because no matter how much he changed, the consequences of his actions will stick with me. She listened to me explaining, and she started crying in the middle of it and said she was incredibly sorry and that she didn't think too much of it at the moment and failed to consider my feelings. She said after I explained it from my point of view, she realized she was being the jerk and it was a stupid assumption that the trauma would go away over time and I would forget about it. We understood where each of us was coming from and I did forgive her. She was very genuine about it. I know she's not a malicious person and wouldn't want to intentionally hurt me, even if it did hurt. There was a bunch of people telling me to break up with her in the comments, and I see why to some other people this would look like a complete deal breaker. But in my opinion, relationships obviously come with their ups and downs, misunderstandings, conflicts like this one. So I want to forgive her for this and move on, especially when she realized what she did was wrong and apologized. If she hadn't, it would be a completely different thing. She told me she doesn't want to keep in contact with him after this and doesn't care about him at all. Even told me she wants to block him on the socials they exchanged, and I said that was up to her. So far, everything seems to be okay, and I feel like this helped our relationship in terms of setting boundaries and respecting them, and I'm glad we were able to talk it out. Hi from Texas. Private businesses can still require masks even without the state mandate. Here's how that's going. I'm a waitress. Our restaurant strictly requires masks while indoors if your meal/beverage hasn't been served and after it's been bussed. The mask mandate honestly wasn't that helpful in corralling unruly customers because they'd either argue that the mandate was not a law so they wouldn't follow it, was unconstitutional so they wouldn't follow it, or was irrelevant because they'd eventually be taking their mask off when their food was served, so they wouldn't follow it. But while the presence of a mandate didn't help much, the lack of a mandate has made things way worse. People who previously wore a mask now don't believe it's necessary for their health, or that we have a right to set mask wearing as a store policy. But what they don't understand is what I'll reiterate for you now. Private businesses can have any dress code they want. Ever go to a fancy restaurant that requires suit jackets for men? Or a grocery store that requires shoes? Yeah. Where were the freedom fighters then? Anyways, regardless of your opinion on masks, no need to argue it to me, in the comments or as a customer, because the owner makes those calls. My job is to enforce his decisions, whether that be all customers have to wear face masks covering mouth and nose, or if it were all customers have to wear sleeveless denim vests. I'd have to enforce it if he wanted it so. That's literally part of my job. Our in-house mask mandate at the restaurant remains firmly in place, and I spent my entire shift telling people to comply or leave, then telling them again, then a third time, then getting our larger, more physically intimidating line cook to tell them. By the end of the shift, I was a master at putting my hand up authoritatively and saying, "Sir/ma'am, it's your choice whether or not to wear a face covering, just as it is our choice to service you in this private business. So comply with our dress code or exit the premises." A few people called the police, or more likely acted as though they were, but at no point did any real authorities bother coming. After my shift ended, I was absolutely exhausted and ready to forget these people and just eat some banana oatmeal. I hit the supermarket on the way home, and the chain still requires masks. As I approached the door, most people were maskless, but stopped short of the entrance to put masks on when seeing the sign, "No problem." The people directly next to me though, a mom with a classic Karen haircut and a teen son approximately 15, didn't. Mom actually did put a tattered, ill-fitting surgical mask on. She wasn't even wearing it correctly, but still, better than nothing. Her son though didn't break stride, just kept heading into the store. His mom flagged him down and said, "Jeremy, put a mask on, it's the policy," kind of quietly, as though she was trying not to anger him. He said, "I thought we didn't have to do that BS anymore. I saw it on the news." His mom explained that businesses could still require a mask even if the state no longer did. At first I was thinking, props to Karen, her haircut is totally misleading. But her son couldn't just let it end on a nice note. He whined that he didn't bring a mask and he didn't want to walk all the way back to the car to get one, and there wasn't Wi-Fi in the parking lot, so no way was he going to wait for her in the car. If he had a mask in the car, why would he have had to wait for her there? Mom tried to think of a rebuttal, eyeing the policy no exemptions sign, but seemed too tired to generate one, so she just braced herself and they headed into the store. A greeter stopped the son and said he needed a regulation face covering, but he ignored her, grunting, "Don't have one," and kept walking. The greeter called after him, but couldn't move from her spot by the door, and eventually he was too deep into the aisles to notice. I found all of this offensive. However, I was too exhausted from dealing with guys like him professionally to take it on personally. I just went about finding the right color of bananas and trying to get back to my car as quickly as I could. Fast forward to the deli counter. I had taken a ticket and was standing in line. Karen and her son were right nearby. Happily, several people were giving Karen's son the evil eye besides me and keeping a healthy distance from him, but he could not have cared less, and neither could his mom. She was placing a long, elaborate deli order, and he was picking up lemons in a nearby display and putting them back. Her son was having a loud FaceTime conversation with a friend, expelling his air and his noisy chatter onto shoppers in every which direction. But I tried to put it out of my mind because I just did not have the bandwidth to deal with people like this one more time tonight. That's when it happened. He coughed, maskless and directly on the lemons. I was getting ready to say something, but thankfully a deli worker noticed and called him out, saying, "Who's coughing?" Looking all around and noticing the kid, "Hey son, you've got to wear a mask to be in here." Karen Jr. shrugged his shoulders, but the deli guy wasn't having it, pulling out the corporate policy sheet. So Karen Jr. looked to his mom for support. She seemed genuinely embarrassed by her son, but not so much that she would hold him accountable for his dangerous choices. She hurriedly explained, "Oh, he has a mask, but he left it in the car and we're parked in the far lot." Deli counter guy was persistent though, saying, "I don't care where he left it. It's the policy. Mask up or head out." He took a few assertive steps in the kid's direction, which I guess was too much for Karen to handle because she threw herself in between her son and the worker. There was still easily 10 plus feet of space between them. He was hardly chesting up to the kid, as Karen triumphantly declared,
The store isn't allowed to have that policy anymore. Didn't you see Governor Abbott's announcement? It was never even a law anyways.
That stymied the deli guy. My guess is because he had seen the announcement and he wasn't sure what to make of it. Didn't want to risk his job if he really couldn't enforce a mask policy anymore, and had a line piling up at his station, so couldn't argue with her all day. So he stepped back, but not before saying, "Well, either way, you shouldn't need a law. It's a paragon of selfishness what you're doing. Son, my mother is gone because of this disease. She's in the ground. Never got to meet her granddaughter. She wasn't too much older than your mother. You should think about that." The kid, unblinking, laughed at this guy. Not chuckled, full-blown belly laugh cackling. His mother pulled him away, saying he was being rude, but didn't make him apologize, let alone apologize herself. I placed my order, told the guy how despicable that exchange was, and apologized for his loss, and that was that. Or so I'd hoped. I prayed I'd be able to avoid them for the rest of my trip, but lo and behold, just as I was about to check out, I realized I was out of plastic wrap. I always have leftovers, so I needed to go for the wrap. Didn't matter how close to checkout I was. I doubled back, holding my breath, no pun intended, and sure enough, the mother-son super spreaders were stationed at the end cap, having an argument with a clerk. As best I could figure it from the bits and pieces I picked up, customers were complaining about his coughing enough to motivate a manager to confront the family. The manager was physically intimidating, so I guessed he was the staff's go-to guy for confrontations, but it became immediately apparent he did not have a personality for conflict. His name was Chad, name tag, and he was a human teddy bear at like 6'5" and 300 pounds. He had, to his credit, managed to get Karen's card away from her, holding it to the side so they could not continue shopping until her son put his mask on. But now Chad was pleading with Karen. "Please don't yell at me. I can't understand when you're yelling." Karen was going off on Chad about the laws he had broken, the discrimination he was enacting against her poor son, how the entire store had been harassing a kid since they entered, and how the news and the corporate office would hear about this and he'd be out of a job, and no one is hiring right now, so he better be careful. Chad seemed genuinely surprised as he tried, and failed, to communicate to Karen gentle reassurance of, "I am trying to help you actually, ma'am. I don't want to harass anyone. I want to work this out. The situation at hand, though, is that you cannot continue to shop until your son conforms to our corporate masking policy for the well-being of the communities we serve. All right? Help me help you." Meanwhile, as Karen was preaching, well, screeching, the innocence of Karen Jr., her son, was actively berating her, telling her she was embarrassing and ineffective, and she was so stupid for wasting time arguing with these people, and he wanted to just ignore them and keep shopping. He was a toothpick, and Chad was a redwood, so I don't know in what universe he thought he'd ignore the situation and continue about his business, but oh well. Anyways, at this stage, I realized it was disrespectful to just be a voyeur to the spectacle. I would either have to speak up or move on with my shopping. Maybe this was the straw that broke my back after the day I'd had at work. Maybe I was just on autopilot, or maybe I felt sympathy for Chad. Probably a mix of all three, but my mask-enforcing persona roared to life. Luckily, I was also still wearing my work clothes, including name tag, or this might not have worked. I stormed over with my most authoritative manager of the manager swagger and said, excuse me, you're creating a disturbance. Do we have a problem here?" Poor Chad started trying to explain and remove me from the situation, thinking I was a concerned customer who was upset by the disruption of their altercation, or worse, a third member of the Karen party. But I just fell into my script, which I had down cold at that point, reciting, "Sir, ma'am, you have a choice as to whether or not you'd like to wear a mask. And as a private business, we have a choice as to the dress code we'd like to set for our customers. You have two options as to how we can proceed from here." Karen just kept talking over me, while her son yelled at her to stop engaging with us and to keep shopping, including this gem of a line. "They're literally lower than rent-a-cops. They're the can-stacking people. Just ignore them." So I went into the Phase 2 script. "All right, you have made the choice not to practice in our services, and we have, in turn, made the choice not to service you. Please leave now, or you will be escorted out. If you leave on your own volition, you will be welcomed back if dressed appropriately. If escorted out, a permanent ban will be issued. Please note we have a clear view of your face on our CCTV for reference, as you are not currently wearing a mask." That nearly made Karen Jr.'s head explode. He started shouting at us, and I just flatly stated, "My colleague is contacting security." Getting edgier as he escalated, because A, I made the assumption the store had security, but it was dawning on me that I had no clue whether or not they did, and B, Karen Jr. was physically larger than me, so I thought back to the stories of store workers being attacked, even hurt, for enforcing these policies. For a minute, I wondered if I should have kept my nose out of this business, but Karen stooped up to the plate. Better late than never. She started pulling her son towards the door, insisting,
"I cannot be banned from here. This store is easily the closest to our house. Come on, come on."
He resisted at first, even intentionally pushing over the end cap display in a rage, to which Chad offered the strong words of, "Hey now, was that really necessary?" When he started destroying property, Karen left him to face security on his own and made a beeline for the car. After about 15 seconds more of kicking stuff around, Karen Jr. realized he was left standing on his own 2 feet without mommy there to shield him from real-world consequences and absolutely broke down. A wave of terror washed over him, and just as quickly as he had flown into the initial rage, he bolted for the exit. Chad was so casual about all of this. He turned to me and asked, "You don't work here, do you? I've never seen you before." And I explained what I'd been dealing with at work and how I felt obligated to step in as a result, and he sincerely thanked me, even offered me coupons, but chillingly said that while he appreciated the thought behind it, next time I should not get involved. He warned that some of these people had been wholly unstable, hitting or spitting at employees, and they did have a usual security guard, but he was out that day because of an injury that one of these people had inflicted on him at another job site. It's only because he was out that they sent any regular store workers to confront the kid at all. He sighed and said, "This is mostly what I've been doing today. I don't know if it's because I've got a calm demeanor or because I look like I don't have a calm demeanor, but either way, I'm always the one they send to deal with these crazies." I was so distracted by all of this, I didn't even end up remembering to get my plastic wrap. I just checked out and headed home as quickly as I could. So stay safe out there, everyone. Wear your masks, keep your distance, get the vaccine, watch out for one another. We'll be through to the other side of this soon. Not as soon as we could be, thanks to people like Karen and her son, but soon. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have said anything to Karen and her son or not? Please let us know.
I would have whipped out the phone and recorded the conversation. You know that would go viral.
The HR lady doesn't like me much. So this happened at the company that I currently work for, but it was many, many years ago. I did not plan the outcome, just a coincidence caused by insisting on malicious compliance. I work in IT, and when I started, my job was rather entry-level, but it was paid as a salary position. After some years, the company decided to make it an hourly position, which I did not like for a variety of reasons. The company's main hourly worker pool was for manufacturing and assembly line, so the company structured its hourly policies around that position. Rigid start and end times, scheduled breaks, and sick time billed to your earned PTO. A lot of these policies were not really compatible with my availability and the type of work that I was doing, not to mention some of the benefits changed considerably. Our employees were supposed to use a time clock, but those were only in buildings that had manufacturing. My manager at the time totally understood why I was disgruntled, and she came up with a few workarounds, one of which was to enter a generic 40-hour time card for me in the system every week, which was cool because it meant that I did not have to use the punch clock. If there was any overtime, she would go in and fix it later. There was nothing that I could do about the change to hourly, but being me, I was pretty vocal about it, and my attitude eventually caught the attention of the HR lady. She also got wind of the whole time card deal, so that came to an end. I gave in and started using the punch clock. No more edits. At some point, my manager needed me to start the day in a different building, which had no punch clock. I don't think she was aware that there was no punch clock, so she had to make an edit to my time card for that day. Well, the HR lady saw the edit and assumed that I was still being obstinate. Out of the blue, my manager scheduled a formal type meeting with me in one of the local conference rooms. She presents a document for me to read and sign, which is a formal reprimand for not following the policy regarding the time clocks. I was instantly furious because I was following the policy, but she sent me to a site without a punch clock. She had no choice as the HR lady was the one who wrote the reprimand and told my manager to have me sign it. I read through the write-up and realized it was very poorly written, like a grade schooler had prepared it. Lots of copy and pasted text, points that did not apply to the issue on hand, and no clearly defined problem with a desired resolution and probationary period, so I refused to sign. I pointed out the many mistakes, the points that did not apply, and lack of a resolution plan or time period. My manager agreed with me that the reprimand was BS, but the HR lady wanted to go down this path. I thought, well, then we were going to do it right, and I was going to make her work for it. I demanded a rewritten form with a clearly stated problem, a desired resolution, and a time frame for when the matter would be considered resolved. My manager said, "The HR lady is not going to like that. She's going to want to talk to you directly." I said, "Good. I will gladly tell her to her face." We scheduled a meeting. I explained to the HR lady that the reprimand process was an opportunity to not only point out mistakes, but also to correct them. The lack of an improvement plan in this write-up meant it could not meet those requirements. Begrudgingly, the HR lady accepted my complaints and agreed to redo the write-up. To my surprise, I never heard from her again about the issue. I had kind of forgot about the whole thing until they did some restructuring in IT, which made me realize I didn't want that hanging over my head unresolved. I decided to formally request a copy of my file from the HR, and to my surprise, the reprimand was not in it. I emailed the HR lady asking about this, and she explained that she rescinded it, so it's gone. I was a little confused that she hadn't mentioned this in the months that had passed, but was glad it was over. Sometime later, I was having lunch with my director, and he brought up the reprimand. He was asking, "Whatever happened with that?" And I told him HR rescinded it. Apparently, HR cannot close a reprimand without the employee's leadership signing off on it, which was about 4 different people. Not a single one would agree to it. It turns out that my malicious compliance with the reprimand process forced her to write a detailed, intelligible reprimand, including an improvement plan. All the extra details she had to add made it clear to everyone that it was BS and she couldn't add it to my file. Am I the jerk for not letting my neighbor's kids play in my lawn? I'm a man in my early 30s. I'm an MD, dermatologist, and just recently I decided to move out of my apartment to a place with more space, especially a lawn, so that my dogs, I have 2, can have more space. I spend a lot of time in my clinic, private practice, and due to that, the 2 of them spend a lot of time alone. That being said, more space would definitely be advantageous for them. I searched for quite a while before I found a house that I liked. It had a big lawn and ended up buying it. It's in a very tiny neighborhood in my city and quite a calm one, which is always great. I've moved to this house about a week ago and haven't had any real troubles at all. Everyone seemed friendly enough. Last Friday, however, when I got home and went to the lawn to play with my dogs, a woman came to knock on my door. She's one of my neighbors and is part of their association. I'm not, and I have no plans of ever joining them, but they don't harm me, so it's fine. I went to answer the door and see what she needed. She was pretty nice at first, welcoming me to the neighborhood and all that. But afterwards, she said, and I quote, "So, I know you're new, but we would like to ask you to keep your dogs inside your house when you're out. The kids like to play in the house lawns, and they are afraid of your dogs. So, you need to put them inside when you're not at home." For a moment, I didn't quite believe what I heard and asked her to repeat, and she indulged me like this was a common occurrence. I just told her flat out, "No, the lawn is for my dogs. Your kids have no business going to my property, nor do you have any ground to make that demand." She did not take that well. She told me she was going to contact the association and all other kinds of stuff. I just told her flat out that she could call the Pope for all I cared. It was my property and my say in it stays. Oh boy, how wrong was I to say that? She left fuming and apparently throughout the weekend started to spread rumors about me to the neighbors. People who would smile at me or say good morning no longer even look at my face. Honestly, I'm more upset than anything else. But seeing this many people believing my actions were kind of a jerk move, it makes me wonder if I am in the wrong. I mean, they were just kids. I could have let them play on the lawn. Anyway, I decided to ask Reddit for help here. Am I the jerk? Should I have just let the kids do what they wanted? Edit. Just a note that I should have mentioned beforehand. My lawn/backyard is already fenced. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Karen? Please let us know. Nothing worse than having a Karen next door, am I right? Am I the jerk for telling my wife that my job is harder than hers? I'll try to keep this short. My wife and I have been together for 10 years. We both turned 30 last week, birthdays 3 days apart, and met in college just after we turned 20. We are child-free by choice. My wife is a social media/ad sales manager, and I am a computer scientist. I was promoted just before lockdown, and now I make about 3 times what she does. We both have bachelor's degrees from the same school. This is all relevant because once we began working from home, My wife saw that I do a lot less work than her. Essentially, I'm given projects and deadlines. If I finish a project prior to the deadline, I spend my extra time playing Xbox, taking the dogs to the park, and keeping the house tidy. Her job is different. She works 8 to 10 hours a day and is often roped into helping coworkers with projects when she isn't working. Edit. During my downtime between my projects, I do nearly all of the cooking, cleaning, and chores. I don't mind this as I like having something to do. My wife has expressed that she is grateful that I don't only play Xbox during this time. She's recently been frustrated, jealous in my opinion, that I work less hard, her words, than her, yet get paid much more than her. We're both 7 to 8 years into our career, and she feels I've come much further than her. I could see these conversations weren't going to end well, so I always tried changing the conversation. I'd say things like, our worth as people isn't measured by salary, or we just have different skill sets. I couldn't do what you do, which is true. I know nothing about marketing, ad sales, social media engagement, etc. Regardless, every time she sees me playing Xbox or something, she has to make a snide comment about how I don't deserve my salary, how she wishes she got paid to sit on her butt, etc. 2 days ago, I finally snapped and told her that while I may not work as many hours, my skill set is much more difficult than hers and far more desirable. I said that if she was unhappy with our combined household income, just over $200,000, that she could go back to school and get a computer science degree, and that I was absolutely sick of her trying to make me feel bad because she's unhappy with her career. Well, she's been ignoring me for 2 days, and her mom called me and told me off for belittling her. Of course, my wife didn't mention that she's been giving me crap for over 6 months now. I'm genuinely curious if I'm the jerk and should have kept my mouth shut, or if I was justified in finally giving her a piece of my mind. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.